everybody want to pull the mics close to them? With our new microphone. Hello and welcome. This is the regular meeting of the Town of South Kingstown Town Council. The date is Monday, August 16th, and the time is 7:30. Could you all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dan, may we have the roll call, please?
Council President Fogarty.
Here.
Council Vice President Eddy.
Here.
Councilwoman McAtee.
Here.
Councilman O'Neill.
Here.
Councilwoman Whaley.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the minutes from previous meetings. First is from a work session from July 26th. Do I have a motion?
I move approval of the work session minutes for July 26th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Motion passes unanimously. Next is for the regular session of July 26th. Do we have-
I move approval of the minutes of the regular session of July 26th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? No, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the closed executive session from July 26th. Is there a motion?
Move
Make a
approval.
motion.
Yep, go ahead.
Oh.
Oh,
Make a motion to approve the closed executive session, July 26th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the consent agenda. If there's anything anybody would like to remove from the consent agenda, please let it be known.
If not, then Kathy, I move approval of this evening's consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, we move on to licenses. First, we have License A, which is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the WKBC Heavenly Health 5K Road Race on Saturday, September 11th, 2010, at 9 a.m. to West Kingston Baptist Church, subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town and issuance of a certificate of insurance naming the town as an additional insured in the amount specified by the risk manager. The application is by Pastor Keith Melanick, 277 Waits Corner Road, West Kingston, and this is a new license. Please come forward and state your name for the record.
My name is Keith Melnick, pastor of West Kingston Baptist Church.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your road race, because you can advertise right here for...
Oh, excellent. It's going to be on September 11th. It's very country roads. It's just basically to get the community together for health, for fun. Simple as that.
Sounds good. And how many people do you expect to...
It's the first time, so it's kind of an unknown. If we get 50 or 100, that'd be wonderful.
Carol?
Is there an entry fee?
I think we're going to do like $10 so you get a T-shirt.
Oh. And how far is the run? What's the
5K.
distance?
5K.
5K, sorry.
3.1 miles.
Yeah, that's good.
Any other questions for the pastor? No, Jim?
So if everyone in your congregation turns out, how many runners will you have?
Yeah, we'll have about 200.
That'd be great.
But you can have
And-
201 if it was you as well.
Okay, great. And can you give us the route of travel?
Absolutely. We're on Waits Corner Road, so just come out left out of the church. A quick left on Fairgrounds, which goes about a mile or so. Comes to 100 Acre Pond, take a left, keep going. Just before it turns to dirt, there's a hill. I think it's Esther Drive, which is a formidable hill. And then it's just to the top and back down again.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, there's a hill involved? Forget it, we're out.
But it's all on back roads, is it?
Absolutely, it's very country roads.
That's great.
I don't need to turn anybody away. I'm sure it's a very good course.
Formidable, we might have lost half the congregation with that.
Is there any other questions? No, hearing
I'm going
none.
to get Jim to sign up.
Yeah.
I move approval of new license A.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. Next, we move into public hearings. Public hearing item A is a public hearing relative to the application for a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingstown in accordance with the general laws of 1956 as amended as follows. Class B limited liquor license. Application for a Class B limited liquor license by Phil's Kitchen Incorporated, DBA Phil's Restaurant, 323 Main Street, Wakefield, by Carl J. Tetzner, President for the first floor dining area, in accordance with the special use permit granted July 21st, 2010 by the Zoning Board of Review, and is further defined in the site plan on file in the town clerk's office. Is there anybody who'd like to come forward about this public hearing? Oh, you're already here.
Excuse me, Kath. I would like to recuse myself from public hearings A and B, and I have the paperwork that I'll be giving to Dale.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before I go on, Dale, are there any correspondence? No, okay. So, we have Mr. Kenyon, I see, in front of us.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I'm John Kenyon, attorney for the applicant, Phil's Kitchen, Inc. The applicant does business as Phil's Restaurant at 323 Main Street. Phil's Kitchen, Inc. is owned and operated by Carl and Ken Tetzner, who are both here tonight. Ken is up here with me. They've been operating at 323 Main Street since 1998. As most of you are probably aware, there's been a restaurant there in excess of 50 years. Originally, they leased the property from the former owners. Last month, they purchased the property, so they're now the owners of the lot that contains 3 buildings there. We're here tonight for a request for a Class B liquor license limited to beer and wine. We'll also have a second request to increase the number of licenses by 1 in town. They received a special use permit to operate a restaurant serving alcohol on July 21st from the zoning board, and there was a written decision dated August 11th, which should be in your file. We submitted floor plans, even though there's no proposed changes to the floor plans. The interior of the restaurant's going to stay the same. They've always been open for breakfast and lunch. The plan is to now open for dinner, and they want the opportunity to offer beer and wine to their customers. The infrastructure for the property won't change. There's adequate parking, storage, lighting, and utilities at the site. As I said, Ken is here with me tonight. I'd like to have him go over a couple of the items on the application. Do you swear him in, or? No?
You can just,
That's zoning.
Ken, if you
does
could
that, we don't,
state your name for the record.
Ken Tetzner.
And are you one of the shareholders for the applicant, Phil's Kitchen, Inc.?
Yes, I am.
And is your father, Carl, the other shareholder?
Yes, he is.
And do you operate Phil's Restaurant at 323 Main Street?
I do.
And are you and Carl also the members of Wakefield Riverside Associates, LLC?
Yes, we are.
And did that entity just purchase the property?
Yes.
And could you explain briefly your current operations and what you're proposing?
Yes. Currently, we do breakfast 6:30 to 2:30. That's going to stay the same. I don't plan on changing that at all. We're going to open back up at 4:30, serve dinner, and hopefully beer and wine. I just bought the property. It needs a lot of work. This is a good chance to raise some more revenue so I could get the work done. Also, it's a good opportunity to bring some more business into downtown. That's basically it.
And could you, in the past, have you had any issues with parking at the restaurant?
No, not at all.
Have you had any problems with vehicular or pedestrian access to the restaurant?
Nope, not at all.
And are you on town water and sewer?
Yes.
And from a site perspective, are you making any changes to the operation?
No,
And did you submit a menu with your application?
I did.
Could you just briefly describe the type of food you're proposing to serve?
Basically, it's, American cuisine. It's still a work in process. I didn't finalize the menu, but basically, a good steak, good home-cooked meal, chicken parm, nice, dinner, meals, I don't know. Just looking at live, but you're looking at it.
I have no further questions if the council members have any questions.
council, any questions? Jim?
There should definitely be rules about teasing us with dinner menus at this time of the night. Ken, I only have just one question on the facilities, men's, ladies' rooms. Do you have anything on the first floor? Are we going to the second floor? What is there now, or what will you be using?
Yeah, we have a bathroom for the facility.
On
The first floor.
first floor?
Yep.
And you're looking maybe to do this Friday and Saturday nights, or you're thinking dinner throughout the week?
Thinking probably close one night, open for 6. My main goal is, this is an opportunity to raise some money, more revenue with the business. The building is an eyesore on Main Street, needs a lot of work. It's been sitting dormant for a long time. Nobody's done anything to it, so I'm trying to make a go at it to dress up downtown.
Was that part of the reason behind purchasing the property, so you could make the renovations yourself?
Correct, yes.
And is the proposal tonight, is that a way to get revenue in order to spruce up the building?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to think also that having the Class B license would also help with its value, and maybe the mortgage application process, if you do go through that. Anyway, I'm just thinking value. All right, thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
Holly?
Do you plan to use the second floor for anything at this point?
No.
That will, storage or something like that?
Nope.
Nope.
I'm going to keep the operation the same. Shut
Same
down at
number of
2:30.
tables and,
Number of tables,
yeah.
How many seats are there currently?
49.
And afterwards, you're still proposing 49?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
No, I guess I asked everything. I was looking at your application, you said Thursday through Saturday, but you're planning on, like, Tuesday through Sunday or something, or?
I think so. I'm still, working on it, but I'm probably going to close one night or 2 nights.
And nobody's upstairs right now?
No,
No.
nope. Needs a lot of work.
Yeah. Did you
Lot of
buy
work.
the little train car next door, or whatever it's called? You did?
Yep.
And
Oh, that'll be
also-
nice once it's redone.
Yeah, it needs,
Plans, yeah.
yeah, it'll look nice
Yeah.
someday.
So you're gonna be doing, you're responsible for the dinner part of it, and is your father still gonna be doing the breakfast part of it, or is that,
No, I do the breakfast part of it.
are you gonna do the breakfast of the, okay, I just didn't know if they were gonna be
And
separated.
I'm going to do the dinner part of it.
You're gonna do both of them?
I'm going to be
okay.
busy.
Yeah, you are gonna be busy.
He's my moral support.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you don't wanna burn yourself out there, you know, so.
I'll be fine.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, though.
All right, so it's just the two of you who were involved in this, so, all right, so everybody's been notified around you, list of abutters.
Kathy, do we have to adjust the application? I think Carol just mentioned, are there certain days
Well,
on
he,
there?
just on his menu, he put that.
Oh,
the-
okay,
The sample menu, he put that, so I don't think we do.
So Michael, it's open, or Steve, and then it's,
If you issue the liquor license to them, they have the ability to use that license during any time that's allowed under state statute.
that's fine, thank you.
All right, there's no questions here. This is a public hearing, so we'll open it up to the public. If the public has any questions, they can feel free to come to the microphone and state their concerns or support. If you do come forward, please state your name for the record.
Larry Fish from the EDC. Work at 50 High Street in Wakefield, pier cleaners. I just want to speak on behalf of it. I think that it encourages more activity on Main Street. It's something that we've been working on for years. We've been talking a lot. I think that things will happen on Main Street, and it'll be more active and vibrant with owner-occupied buildings. I think that's good. I think this might give the town the capability of finally getting that comfort station next to the bike path, and it really could finalize the long-laid plans of the middle of Wakefield. All right.
Thank you, Larry. Is there anybody else who would like to come forward? Okay. Hearing none, I will make a motion to, I guess we could leave this open until we, can we close this? close it, and then move on to, okay.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 4-0. Next, we move on to the public hearing for public discussion relative to the need for an additional liquor license within the community. So this is, if anybody has a problem with any liquor licenses, this would bring our total up to, for the limited beer and wine, from 2 to 3 right now in the town, just to give you some background information. So, anybody on the council have anything to say regarding this? No? No. Again, it's public hearing item B, so if anybody has a concern, they can please come forward, state their name for the record.
Hi, Bob Traeger. I really just have a couple questions because unfortunately, I don't know all the liquor laws in Rhode Island and in our town, but is it from what I read, it's at the sole discretion of the town to increase the number of licenses? All of them, liquor stores, Class B, everything?
Liquor stores are actually regulated by state statute, so there's a limit on those that the town cannot exceed. However, the Class B liquor licenses, every town sets their own limit.
And it's my understanding that when someone comes forward to get a liquor license or makes an application, if the majority of abutting property owners aren't in favor of it, it's closed.
There's no jurisdiction if 50% or more of the abutting property owners object. That's correct.
And barring that, it's at the sole discretion of the town council, correct?
Yeah, there are other rules about how close you are to a church or to a school, et cetera.
Okay. And not knowing, for example, I was down in Jerusalem. Well, my family's been down there a long time. That's Narragansett. Right. But Captain Jackson, it's a Matunic Oyster Bar now. It's been several places. Are they the other two Class Bs? Do you know?
A Matunic Oyster Bar has a full liquor license.
He's full? And Jack's is too?
Yes.
The other
Okay.
two are Jones Pizza and DB Pizza.
And generally speaking, I mean, Fat Bellies, that was a bring your own before, wasn't it?
No.
No, they had a license.
They had a full license before.
I'm just trying to understand the process. I don't have any objections to anything that's going on, and it's more of an educational thing because I was reading about it and I didn't fully understand it. And so basically, at any time, if a viable business comes along and the neighborhood kind of wants it, you can give them a liquor license.
The process is they apply, and then the council, by their ordinance, has to have a public hearing on whether or not they want to increase the number. This way, it gives the council control over the number of liquor licenses in the town. And that's where we're at now, whether or not, there's obviously been an applicant, there does not presently exist a license. They will have to decide whether or not they want to create another Class B limited license.
And at any point, if someone doesn't live up to the expectations, that can be revoked at any time. It would take a public hearing, though, or...
There'd have to be what's called the
Or
show
show
cause
cause.
hearing. A liquor license does become a property right, but yes, a council has the authority to revoke it for cause.
Okay. Well, that's all I really wanted to know. Thank you very much.
Luckily, we haven't had to do that. We've been
That's never
close with a
happened?
few of them. Not since I've been on the council, no. No, we've had a few people who've been in for some, infractions, and we've contacted them, but no. Most of them are very, very abiding to the rules.
Yeah, we certainly levied fines a
Yes,
couple
we
of
have,
times
we
and
have.
a
A
couple
couple
of
fines,
closed
but
days
Yes.
for infractions.
But we've never pulled a license from anyone.
No,
Not
you
that
have. I mean, the police department does monitoring, and sometimes they do checks, and
We get reports from the police who do the checks.
Okay, thank you.
And Bob, just so you know, all the abutters were notified within 200 feet, so that's part of the application.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Then I'll have a motion to close a public hearing, item B.
I'll move to close public hearing item B.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 4-0. Next, we are going to go to the new business item A. And this is new business item A, is a resolution affirming or amending the town liquor license rules and regulations. Section 1, the number of licenses for each class shall be authorized as indicated below. So this is to change the limited, Class B limited from 2 to 3. Would be the motion for this new business item.
I move approval of new business item A
Second?
To move it to, get the,
from 2 limited B, Class B licenses to 3.
Second again.
okay, Carol and Jim. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and now we go back to 7A. And we're going to make a motion to, well, I shouldn't say that, the council will make a motion to approve the public hearing item A.
I move we approve public hearing A.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And then we're going to also make a motion to approve the public hearing item B. Is there a motion?
Yep, move approval for approval of public hearing
Oh, do we have to?
B.
All right, I just
It
wanted
says
to make
we
sure we
already
dotting
did
the
A and
i's
B,
and
didn't
crossing
we?
the t. Okay.
Okay, that's right, yeah. I'm on
Okay,
the-
just making sure we're moving on with that. Well, good luck. Good luck to you,
Yeah,
really.
good
I
luck.
think you're right with the Main Street.
Luck, Kenny.
And yeah,
Carl.
good luck with the whole, and redoing those buildings, they
We'll
do
see
need
you
some
there.
work. Good luck. So now we move on to public hearing item C. We're going to have Ella join us back up here. Okay, next is C, a public hearing relative to the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance as follow. Article 8, signs. Section 803, prohibited in all zoning districts. The following signs shall not be permitted in any zoning district: flashing signs, signs which incorporate in any matter or any flashing or moving illumination, animation, or illumination which varies in color. This shall be included but not limited to electronic messaging boards, centers, animated or intermediate, LED lighting emitting diode type signs, digital, programmable ink, and all other electronic changeable copy signs. And section C of that 803 is hazards to public safety, any sign or signs which constitutes a hazard to public safety or health, including signs which by reason of size, location, content, coloring, or manner of illumination obstruct the vision of a driver or pedestrian, or obstruct or detract from the visibility or effectiveness of any traffic sign or control device on public streets, roads, or sidewalks, or which obstruct free ingress or egress from a fire escape, door, window, or other required exitway, or which make use of the words such as stop, look, one way, danger, yield, or any of the similar words, phrases, symbols, lights, or characters in such a manner as to interfere with or mislead or confuse traffic. Oh, that's a lot in that particular one. All right, Dale, do you have correspondence?
From the Planning Board dated July 14th, 2010, to the Town Council, recommending the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance concerning LED signs and electronic messaging boards as printed on the agenda, and incorporating findings of fact, consistency with the comprehensive community plan, and findings of consistency with the purposes of zoning.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Dale. Okay, so we'll open the public hearing. Not in this, and I see Vin is in front of us, so Mr. Murray?
Good evening, members of the Town Council. The basic intent of the amendments is to clarify the provisions of Section 803, which is signs prohibited in all zoning districts. And as noted by the President in reviewing the proposed language, we do have existing prohibitions for flashing signs, as well as signs that are considered hazards to public safety. The intent of what's before you is to kind of make these more contemporary towards changes in technology with regard to Section 803B, to add the language that would address LED or light-emitting diode type signs and electronic messaging boards and changeable copy signs, etc. The other amendment is hazards to public safety, and that simply adds some suggestions that signs that are hazardous towards pedestrians should be addressed and should be not allowed under our ordinances. The amendments are detailed in the agenda under Public Hearing 7C. And concerning the proposed amendments to 803B, flashing signs, the Planning Board expressed concerns with the potential proliferation of LED-type signs and messaging centers that may result given the language in the current ordinance. As the council knows, and I think everybody in town knows, one such LED sign has been erected at the new Wakefield Prescription Facility on Route 108, Kingstown Road at Charles Street. A second sign permit is pending for an LED messaging sign at the CVS facility at Dale Carlier Four Corners. In the July 14th correspondence referenced by the clerk from the Planning Board to the Town Council, the board notes that it is the finding of the Planning Board that LED signs and electronic messaging boards are a distraction to motor vehicle operators and are not pedestrian-oriented. The Planning Board also finds that such signs are incongruous with South Kingstown's overall small-town character, community identity, and community goals aimed at fostering and protecting the unique qualities of the town's historic villages. The board also had concerns that signage may impact public safety, should put the pedestrian on equal footing with the automobile, and that's the rationale for the changes to 803C, hazards to public safety. And as noted by the clerk, and I would reiterate, that the Planning Board's letter contains findings of fact, findings of consistency with the comprehensive community plan, and findings of consistency with the purposes of zoning. I would note that other jurisdictions have recently adopted similar provisions regarding LED signs and electronic messaging type board signage. And two examples would be, one was Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is a large community, tourist-based community, 450,000 residents, more or less. And the small town of Moultonborough, New Hampshire, which is on Lake Winnipesaukee, which has, ironically, 4,500 residents. So, and interestingly enough, New Hampshire is a very liberal jurisdiction in terms of what they allow, but Moultonborough is a historic community. I don't know, great similarities to South Kingstown, but certainly some in terms of its colonial heritage. And looking at that, Robert Frost had a summer home there, by the way, at one point in time, just as a kind of a tangential, interesting fact. But we did provide in my memorandum to the manager for the town council's consideration a motion, should you decide to move forward with these amendments, to adopt the same. We have had signage issues have been kind of on the town's plate for the last month or so, beginning with election signs and more recently with signs related to sign violations that the building official had issued relative to sandwich board and other signs. And pursuant to that, we've had conversations about creating an ad hoc committee to outreaching to the Chamber of Commerce and the local EDC, Planning Board, and Main Street merchants to try to, take a look at our ordinance for the signage, because I think the manager had mentioned in the pre-session that the ordinance as currently constituted dates back to the middle 70s, so it has not been updated. And part of the reason for the proposed amendments is related to technology outpacing regulatory language, so we just want to be consistent with that. And I would be happy to, and the Planning Board was also interested in trying to move this quickly, so we didn't have a proliferation, that we may not be comfortable with as a community.
Vin, are there any other, oh, sorry, did you say me?
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Carol.
Any other towns besides, any towns in Rhode Island or cities in Rhode Island that? have adopted this?
Not that I'm aware of. I had heard that East Providence may have some regulations, but I was not able to filter those out. So we may be a forerunner in this particular issue.
Holly? Oh,
And did you notify the businesses that we were going to discuss this evening? I think you mentioned in the work session the Chamber of Commerce. You discussed it with them.
There's been some discussions about sign issues more broadly with, I think the Director of Administrative Services has been kind of point with that with both the Merchants Association, the Merchants Group from Main Street downtown, and also with Mr. Iacocca from the Chamber. I know Mr. Nada has also been in contact with the EDC chair, and I have spoken to and communicated with the planning board chair, and the planning board chair is very much willing to discuss these issues because of the similar opinion that we haven't modernized this ordinance in general in quite a long time. So,
Yeah, thank you, because I know you said you were concerned that it was done quickly, but they were given notice that it was going to be discussed.
well, yeah, I mean, there's the broader issue and the specific one here this evening. So, I mean, this is, as any ordinance that we entertain, the town has taken, I believe, 3 ads in the local newspaper, and there's been a lot of coverage in the local papers as well of this consideration this evening.
follow-up?
Yeah, I do have a question. I don't know, maybe Mike, you can help me with this. In the ordinance that currently exists, flashing signs, the first line, signs which incorporate in any manner any flashing or moving illumination, animation, or illumination which varies in color, wouldn't that cover an LED light or these signs that we're currently discussing? I mean, I don't know how you can, you know, the signs that we've just talked about, the one at the Wakefield Prescription and the one at URI, wouldn't they be, it seems like the language that's already in there would prohibit a certain amount of that anyway.
I would agree. The sign at URI is not within the town's jurisdiction at all, so we don't have any regulatory say over that sign. You know, there was a permit issued for the Wakefield Prescription sign, and that was the process for that new facility was before the Planning Board and Zoning Board of Review regarding development plan and signage. That particular sign, you know, there was a permit issued for that sign, and I guess the early understanding was that it would be a static or non-changeable display, but after it was installed, it was animated shortly thereafter, and I know Mr. O'Hara had indeed put out a notice of violation requiring that the sign be static in nature. I think the idea of what we're talking about tonight is to try to make this more contemporary to technology and more specific towards types of technology, which are changing all the time, so it's pretty difficult to reference each and every kind, but I think it just, we often use the term in town hall of a belt and suspenders, and I think this would qualify in that particular regard.
So in other words, the one at Wakefield, they're not allowed to do it anyway at this point, to change, to illuminate, to animate, or vary in color.
Well,
Illuminate and vary.
that has
Already
been,
they can't
that
do
was
that.
the, you know, it has, since the violation notice was issued, it has been a static display.
But again, Mike, I mean, I think the current
I
statute...
think the issue with, you know, a flashing
The
sign
ordinance.
versus these electronic signs or LED signs is the ability to keep changing the message or to actually animate the sign itself with walking objects, et cetera. I believe that is really the purpose behind it, as opposed to just what you'd call one message that just keeps flashing on and off.
But according to this, you couldn't even do that, a flashing.
No, that's correct.
Right.
But you can't do that now.
But you
under
can't
the
do that
ordinance.
anyway. Well, that's what I'm
That's-
saying, the language seems to already cover it.
Well, I'm
some
not
degree.
sure if you had something that just kept changing signs all day long and it didn't flash, I suppose you can argue that that would be allowed.
No? Jim, Paul, any questions?
Yeah, Kathy.
Jim, go ahead.
Mike, we discussed earlier, and all other electronic changeable copy signs. How about interior against windows? How about under the cover of an awning? Are we looking exterior and interior both, or is this simply a sidewalk presence?
My understanding is it's interior in the sense that if you can see it from the outside, you know, if it's in the window and you're walking by, that would not be allowed.
So interior and exterior. If it's changeable, moving, flashing,
I
intermittent.
think there's a
whatever.
difference between an interior sign which is interior and not visible to the outside. In other words, if you have signs in your store that are not in the window.
Help. Can you give me some other ideas of all other electronic changeable copy signs? Vin, is there?
Rather than try to list all the different types of technology, I think the thought was that we would paint it broadly at this point, because, you know, in addition to LED signs, there are other types that may be out there that, you know, certainly is a fairly complicated area of technology coming forward, and we're, you know, trying to react to it in a manner that gives the town appropriate controls through the generality of the statement in the ordinance. But there are other types. I mean, I imagine there'd be plasma-type signs or LCD, you know, liquid crystal display signs that could have animating characteristics, or, you know, it's kind of like televisions in a sense, because those are changing quite a bit. You have the LCD, plasma, you have, you know, projection. I mean, there's lots of different technologies, and I think some of these are kind of cross-pollinated between home entertainment and advertising, so.
And also things that might come forward that we can't even think of right now.
Right.
Kind of covers everything.
Well, that's the language as proposed, and, you know, that's
Yes.
why we're having the public discussion this evening, to try to determine if it's in the community's best interest to move forward with this type of prohibition, essentially, so.
And they could appeal, couldn't they?
Whom?
Appeal a sign.
Well, I mean, if somebody erects a sign and there's a difference of opinion as to what it, and there's, and the building official, zoning officer issues a notice of violation, there is an appeal process to that may be taken, so. Yeah.
I just want to clarify on the Wakefield prescription. They have a sign out there, and seems to be what started this.
True.
And what can he do with that sign? He can just display one ad and change it?
I think
Every so often?
I believe the understanding with the building official is that it's changeable one time per 24-hour period. So it's, that sign, you know, with any action the council may or may not take tonight would be grandfathered in, so to speak, or legally non-conforming, so it could continue on.
So he can keep the sign, but
Sure.
he can only change it once a day?
Well, that is the understanding that I believe
And it can't
exists.
move? It can't?
Correct.
And now, if you have a regular lit-up sign and you send a guy out there to change the letters, that can happen
Yeah.
5 times a day, 10 times a day?
Well, I suppose that's true, yes, but it's certainly not instantaneous if you're paying an
Right.
employee to go out and
Oh,
manually.
obviously, but
yeah.
I'm just showing the difference.
Yeah, I might also add that this type of proposal would not affect like time and temperature clocks. Those are covered separately in the ordinance and allowed. And,
Gas stations, too.
right, I mean, they have, you know, some of their, you know, pricing and stuff like that, which is governed by state statute as well as our local ordinance, but. And barber poles, that manages, right.
And what?
Arbor poles.
Yeah, I think those
And what
are-
kind of lighting, just for my own clarification, what kind of lighting is that at the bank where the temperature changes and the the time changes?
Well, yeah, but it's probably an LED, a LCD, liquid crystal display of something similar to that. But those are fine, and those are under the ordinance now and permitted. That would not change.
So they're
based on-
covered in a separate section?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Back to Wakefield prescription, how about the brightness? Obviously, it needs to be adjusted for day, dusk, night,
Right.
but
Yeah,
is that a constant also with this ordinance?
Well, we haven't addressed that, but there is we've become aware of a testing protocol to adjust the lighting to the, and I'm certainly out of my element with this, but, the building official and I have talked about, and he had some material that he had gotten that would establish a protocol which basically, at least as I understand it, would measure the ambient light, I think, half hour after dusk, and then the sign fully lit, and they have a meter that determines, and I think it's called a lux meter or something similar to that, and there's a standard that's commonly adopted for the increase, so it's not, really blaring or glaring in terms of the intensity, so it kind of, I guess, tones it down, for lack of a better term, but, these types of lights are used for traffic signals. They're intended to be, quite visible and very bright, and for, all the state signals and other signals utilize this technology now. And that's a change from years back, and who knows what the future holds in terms of the technological advances and that await us in the future, so.
That's the broad-based wording of it. Carol, go ahead.
Back to the Wakefield prescription sign, and if, I know you said he can only change it once a day. Now, if Coke is on sale in the morning, and he wanted 6 hours later to put, I don't know, paper towels are on sale. I mean, why would that be so offensive if he didn't do it constantly?
Well, I'm not making a judgment whether it would or it wouldn't. I mean, it's either static or animated. I think the changeable thing during the day, the town could certainly, I suppose, consider standards for the frequency of change, but we don't have that in place now. I think what was the major concern was the type of technology, the intensity of the light, the concern about proliferation if we did nothing, and just trying to modernize the ordinance. That was the motivation of the planning board, working with staff and coming up with the recommendations. That's before the town council this evening. The working group I mentioned could certainly take up that kind of consideration. Any ordinance is not, ordinances can tend to have an animation to them as well, because they can change, and
Right.
they often do with changing circumstances and time.
But it does take time, and that's why I'm saying, I don't see how, that's not flashing if he changes it
Well,
every so
I mean, that's
often.
not my judgment call as
Yeah.
in my role, but I think it's kind of new ground we're working on now, and we're trying to find, the appropriate footing in the community's interest. This is certainly not intended to have any negative or deleterious effect on economic development. I think, from my estimation, having worked in several communities, our sign ordinance is, I would actually look at it as fairly liberal at this point. But it could use modernization, and everything we do ordinance-wise, you need to revisit it occasionally so you can make it appropriate to current circumstances and tailor it so it does the job it's intended to do.
Well, I think we should visit that, though, how often one could change that kind of sign.
Okay. Ella?
I guess I'm trying to get a clarification of what you mean. Right now, it's the existing ordinance that's in place at the time that sign was licensed does not allow for it to, for it to have moving illumination. So.
Right. No,
if you're
I
going to be
understand that.
But if you're going to change it, you're going to be changing the illustration that's on the board, whether it's textual or whether it's the picture of a Tide bottle. So it would, that's not allowed now. What the building or the zoning official has indicated is that you can have the sign based on the existing ordinance, but it can only change once every 24 hours. And that's based on the existing ordinance. That has nothing to do with the changes that are proposed here tonight.
No, I understand that, but I'm just suggesting that it's very restrictive to say he can only change it once every 24 hours. If it just says the name of his business, it would stay that way permanently. But if it says that and then he's advertising specials, to just say you can only, it's like, if you have a restaurant, you can say Tuesday special, Monday special, but you should be able to say lunch special and dinner special. It shouldn't have to be all day long the same thing. I just think I wouldn't consider that flashing or disturbing to safety if it changed, I don't know, once every 3 hours, once every 6 hours. I really don't know what would be
The only
necessary.
clarification I'm seeking is that that's not allowed now. If with a review of the ordinance was done and they wanted to provide a frequency of change, that would be something that is not grandfathered in at this point. It
Okay.
would be a subject of discussion and council approval.
Okay.
I'm not sure that you can answer this, but I would be very interested in listening to someone speak on from Wakefield Prescription later. I'd be very interested in the cost of the sign and how we ended up getting where we are today with the sign. And if there was a cost difference with what we're expecting them to do, I really would like to know that differential. The second question that I have is the lighting or the voltage. Is it possible for that sign at Wakefield to lower the voltage? And I'm not sure if you can answer that or if it's something that will come, if somebody will address that later on from Wakefield Prescription.
The first question I don't know the answer to. I think regarding the second one, I think probably most of the technology is adjustable in some form or fashion, but I would defer to people that have more specific knowledge of that particular sign.
Thank you, Vin.
Just one more before we go to the audience. Steve, as you just read to Carol, can I assume that the clock could start ticking at noon, so you'd have one ad that morning, different ad that afternoon that would carry to the next morning, and then at noontime change? So you could get 2 bites of the apple during the day? Or am I not reading that way?
I think the interpretation that the zoning officer has made is that it can change once in a 24-hour period. I think the logic of that was that he assumed that the change would be made in early morning hour rather than during the day when there would have been heavier traffic, that somebody would see the change, pay attention to that, and not be paying attention to what they were doing driving.
So it could be done at a noon or 2 o'clock, that one change during the day?
I don't think there's any specific prohibition of doing it at a certain time, but rather that once it's done, it's got to stay that way for 24 hours.
Thank you.
Kath, and I just wanted to make reference, I think Westerly does have similar verbiage that we have, so I know that the question was asked at the town council table, were there other ordinances with illuminated signs? Westerly does have one.
All right, since this is a public hearing, if there's no more questions from the council, we'll open it up to the public. Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Margaret Lawrence. I'm an attorney with offices at 11 Caswell Street in Wakefield, and I represent Wakefield Prescription. I'd like to clarify a couple of things, if I may. A permit was issued to Wakefield Prescription prior to purchasing the sign and prior to illuminating the sign. There was no notice of violation ever given by the zoning official. There was a miscommunication relative to the changing of the sign. As soon as the zoning official contacted myself and my client, they voluntarily adhered to the fact that it should only be changed in a 24-hour period. As far as the cost is concerned, it's a considerable cost, somewhere north of $30,000. As far as the luminescence is concerned, that luminescence is fixed at the time that the sign is constructed. My understanding is that technology may in fact be changing, that could change. But as Wakefield Prescription sign exists today, it is a legal sign under the current ordinances of the town of South Kingstown. It will not be affected by the passage of this new ordinance, and the owners of Wakefield Prescription are complying with the 24-hour changing. I think Ms. McEntee's point is very well taken. One example that my clients have discussed with me is in some instances, they may be advertising a liter of Coke at a certain price. By 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they may in fact have run out of that product. So I think Ms. McEntee's suggestion that maybe something less than 24 hours should be considered. From a business person's point of view in this town, I'm a little concerned that this may be considered anti-business. And I understand Vin's word to me this morning was that this is a tourniquet so you can get control. But I hope that the council does not lose sight that we really need to make this into a much workable ordinance and not an absolute prohibition. The sign ordinance as it exists today, sizes relate to the number of businesses on a parcel, the size of the parcel, the size of the building, and things like that. And I think that's something that should come under consideration. So I just hope that this discussion vis-a-vis the ad hoc committee is not going to be swept under the rug, and that we do revisit this and we do take into consideration today's technology, and we do take into consideration that we need to be a pro-business, welcoming community. I understand, I mean, I live here, I'm a taxpayer here, I'm a business person here. I understand we do want to an extent, retain our small town feeling, if you will, but reality is we've got a lot of commercial development in town, and we need to continue to make sure that we're fostering that commercial development, we're enhancing that commercial development, and we're being a commercially friendly town because of all the sections of town that is commercially developable. And we all know, for those of us that paid our tax bills today, you cannot keep this town going on residential taxes only. We need to broaden our tax base. Thanks for the soapbox, but most importantly, you should know that Wakefield Prescription sign, as it exists today, is perfectly legal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. I think we were all clear on that beforehand. It's grandfathered in.
Larry Fish, again. I'm not as eloquent as the attorney that just spoke, but I've written down a little script that I'd like to read from, so I get it precise. I apologize for that. There's a few things concern me as a business owner, and that's all I'm talking about right now, not the EDC. This proposal tonight seeks to further restrict what a business can, or in this case, cannot do in this town. I don't think the council members or the town management wants to be perceived as anti-business. I understand that. I think that if the Economic Development Committee had been asked by town staff, the planning board, or the council for its input into this proposal before it came to you tonight, it would have been perceived as coming from the business community, not against it. Because the town is of the mindset that the new Wakefield prescription sign will cause a domino effect and Wakefield will look like an East Coast version of the Las Vegas Strip, I think in our haste, we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. For example, this proposal tonight prohibits all LED signs. LEDs are the latest and the greatest, the 21st century. Save upwards of 90% of the electricity compared to conventional lighting. I don't think the council members want to be considered anti-conservation. LEDs are non-toxic. According to our Rhode Island DEM, all expired fluorescent bulbs must be stored, labeled, and disposed of by hazardous waste outfits. I think the council members would like to encourage the use of LEDs and discourage the use of fluorescents to eliminate more mercury out of our waste system. I get that we don't want a Vegas Strip in Wakefield, neither do I. But this proposal has come before the council tonight, and its content really concerns me, and I hope it concerns the council. Lastly, the EDC welcomes the opportunity to assist the town staff, the planning board, and the council in reviewing and revamping the town's entire sign ordinance, including the sandwich boards. I believe that this is a part of EDC's job. With the business community's input and involvement, together we can produce an updated overall 21st century sign ordinance, not a stopgap tourniquet style that's proposed in front of you tonight. Thank you.
Larry.
Yep.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Bob Traeger. A couple of the provisions in this, I'm not sure what it would apply to, like LEDs, are we talking LCDs as well? Any moving, scrolling sign? So like when you go to the gas pump and you put your card in, there's a scrolling thing trying to sell you Coke?
Oh, they're under a different ordinance.
That's a different ordinance? What about, I'm just thinking of a couple offhand, like what about the police when they put their flashing speed limit signs on you?
Those are also put on public property, not private property. We're talking about private property here.
Okay, well, so the town can put flashing lights up, but a business can't?
Correct.
Okay.
With their safety purposes involved.
Well, you just said flashing lights are distracting. Well, it's a speed limit sign, but there are posted static speed limit signs, aren't there? I mean, the kids find it very amusing when the thing goes off and flashes, but anyways, that was one that I was concerned about, that if a business can't do it, I mean, why can the town do it? I don't really see why the town should have more privileges than, what about flashing Christmas lights? I'm serious. I mean, what about flashing Christmas lights? If someone has Merry Christmas over their house and it's flashing, I find that stuff kind of gaudy anyways, but...
The business district, that's what this ordinance is about. It's not about the public safety signs that may be placed on the road by the police department. It's not talking about Christmas lights on somebody's home.
Okay, so it's strictly commercial.
This deals with the commercial zones in the community. It does not deal with any other.
So, but at Christmas time, I mean, that's usually when you see a little more of the glitz of the flashing lights. So that, all that stuff, a lot of that stuff would be prohibited as well in the commercial district. Am I not correct on that? Don't you see a little more flashing?
I don't know if they're signs, though. I mean, a Christmas light isn't necessarily a sign.
Christmas lights are not signs.
They're not signs.
But if the sign say is bordered with Christmas decoration with colored lights, would that come under the ordinance? Well, I'm just, you know what I'm trying to do? I'm not
I
trying to.
understand the question
What I'm
you're
trying to
asking.
do is saying that, do you really have this ordinance down where you know what's covered and you know what's not covered?
Right. If it's a sign, it's covered. A sign advertises a business, a name, a product.
So any sign that moves on a commercial district that is an LCD, whether it's illuminated or not, is prohibited?
That's correct.
Okay. And it can't change more than once a day? Okay, thank you.
If I may, for clarification.
Sure, Margaret.
If you take a look at the ordinance that was advertised, it says prohibited in all zoning districts. So not just commercial districts. And it doesn't say for advertising purposes. Both of those may be additions for clarification, that it is commercial district and it is for the purpose of commercial advertising.
Right.
Mike.
We're talking about signs that advertise businesses, businesses are in commercial zones.
Let's read this verbatim, please. Section 803, signs prohibited in all zoning districts. Following signs shall not be permitted in any zoning district. Then if you take a look at item B, I do not see the word advertising. I don't have my zoning ordinance with me tonight. It may be helpful to take a look at the zoning ordinance to see if sign itself is defined in the definitions. But I think, although,
It is defined under section 801, and the sign ordinance does apply to industrial districts, and there are provisions for residential signage, but I think what this would do with a flashing or animated sign in a residential district would not be permitted as well. It's not now. It's not, the allowances for residential districts are very strict, and, for example, a customary home occupation sign is defined. But under section 801 of the existing ordinance, section 8 of the ordinance is signs in general. Section 801 has a very lengthy definition of what constitutes a sign. So, could read it if necessary, but I think it's
I can read some of it because it is very specific. A sign identifies the premises or occupant or owner of the premises that advertises any trade, business, profession, industry, service, or other activity, advertise any product or item, advertise a sale, rental, use of all part of premises, including what's to be displayed, et cetera. So I think the questions about, the Christmas ornaments or displays, they wouldn't come under the definition of a sign. And this ordinance is speaking to signs. So I don't think anyone has to worry that they can't put their Christmas decorations up that say Merry Christmas, holiday seasons, et cetera. That's not how sign is defined in our ordinance.
Please come forward. Yep, state your name for the record.
Bill White, 27 Windmill Drive, also a member of the EDC. The question I have really pertains more to the public safety issue. It states here that it's a concern for public safety. Had there been any complaints to the chief of police or to the police department or just to the town manager's office about public safety violations or public safety problems here?
There's been nothing placed on the record from the police department on that.
Okay, so the concern here is something that has not materialized.
I think the concern is the consensus of the planning board believes that that is a concern to them. The planning board is responsible for providing recommendations on amendments to the zoning ordinance, and they've made that.
But
You
it's
may
ba-
not agree with it, but that's what the position of the planning board is.
But it's based on an assumption, something that could happen in the future. It's not based on something that has already occurred.
Well, I think that many public safety issues you try to address in advance of them becoming a problem.
Right, but we've also established that there's no current ordinances similar to this in the state, and we haven't had any issues of this in any other towns that have rised up to the occasion where there is a true need to be concerned here. I mean, I certainly understand that you want to be proactive and trying to be ahead of the game in terms of making sure that there's no public safety issues, but as there doesn't seem to be any type of issues that have occurred at any stage of the game, it seems to me that we're jumping to conclusions here when perhaps we don't have all the facts. And maybe a committee would be the proper way to handle this and looking at revamping the ordinance. That's all I was saying.
Well,
Thank you.
let me just answer you then. The hazards to public safety are a condition of the ordinance as it exists. The only addition is to say, in addition to public safety concerns for motor vehicles, there should be safety concerns for pedestrians. That's the only addition to that ordinance for that paragraph, is to add the word pedestrians or sidewalks, where they're looking at either the roadway for protection or the sidewalk for protection is being added, or the motor vehicle to add pedestrian safety as a concern as well. I'm not sure why there would be objection to that.
Thank you.
Mike, you look like you want to say something.
Well, I was just going to add that the planning board's recommendation is broader than just the safety issue, and that, of course, is an important one. But the recommendation also states that they find such signs are incongruous with South Kingstown's overall small-town character, community identity, and community goals aimed at fostering and protecting the unique qualities of the town. I think in the pre-hearing we were talking about Mineral Spring Avenue in North Providence, Route 2 or Bald Hill Road in Warwick, there's Smith, Charles Street. We all know what these streets look like. And the issue is this: if you allow one, obviously you have to allow anyone. And the question is, as a town, is that what you want to allow or not? And If the answer is yes, fine. If the answer is no, then you need to do something about it before all of those things begin popping up. So it's just important to realize the planning board was looking at the character of the town as a strong part of its recommendation.
Carol?
And I agree with that. I do agree with the planning board's wants to keep the overall town character, community identity, community goals, fostering, protecting unique qualities of the town's historic village. I agree with all that. But at the same time, what we have here is you're saying that the current ordinance allows for a sign like it's Wakefield prescription, but at the same time, it doesn't allow it to move or change, only 24 hours. So why would anybody purchase a sign as expensive as that if they can't use it to do all of those things? So I think in and of itself, it's going to stop someone from buying that sign. Because why would you buy it? If you can't let it move and you can't let it flash, you're just going to go with a different style of sign. So we've already told Wakefield that when they're in total compliance, but they can't make it move anymore, except once every 24 hours they can change their sign. So I don't know why any other business owner would endeavor to buy into a sign that it can't spend all that money on it and can't make it move, can't make it flash, can't make it do what the intention was. And I think Mr. Fish is right. I think LEDs, you hear about it all the time. It's a much more conservation appropriate for all sorts of lighting, financially and otherwise. So I'm not sure what we're trying to do here, because we've already done it in many ways.
The only thing I would add is that within 6 weeks of that sign being placed, a second application from another business, which has multiple locations in South Kingstown, has filed an application for a similar sign, understanding what the limitations are.
So he can't make it move either. And he can only change it, he or she can only change it once every 24 hours.
That's correct.
And would that application, if it were approved, would they have to eliminate their other signs that they currently have in place?
What they would do is, my understanding is they're working with the Main Street sign that's there that now has the lettering that they replace on a daily basis. They would remove what's the signboard at this point and install in place of that one of these LED signs.
So going back to my earlier thoughts, that ordinance would allow a change midday, anytime during the day, or to use what Ms. Lawrence said, if they ran out of paper towels or Coke, if that change came at that one time, then they'd have a 24-hour wait.
There'll be a contract that the CVS will sign, which will have specific limitations that they would sign on to before the sign would be allowed. And the 24-hour provision would be addressed in that. That contract provision hasn't been finalized yet. My understanding was that it would be similar to what has gone with Wakefield prescription. I don't think there's a defined time of the day that it has to be done. I think it was assumed that it was going to be in early morning.
Right. Has, maybe Ms. Lawrence could ask this, would Wakefield prescription agree to a 24-hour clock and change that one time during the business day? Or
We've already agreed to that.
Yeah, anytime during the day, just
That'll
one
be
change.
only changed once in a 24-hour period. I can also say that Mr. O'Hara has given me a copy of the proposed contract for CVS and requested that Wakefield Prescription look at it and see if there's any terms and conditions that they can accept, and that is in process. So that I think what the town is looking for is some consistency, and notwithstanding the fact that Wakefield Prescription is grandfathered in, we understand that consistency is important moving forward so that we accomplish the goals that the planning board articulated. So there may be some sections that we can't sign on to because of the difference of CVS being open 24/7 and Wakefield Prescription not being. But certain things will be agreeable, which is at this point in time, agreeing to the 24-hour change. Again, hoping that this ad hoc committee moves forward relatively quickly so we can get some more workable guidelines. Strict prohibitions just really offend me, so I think we need more workable guidelines. But we are reviewing the draft that was being presented to CVS.
Thanks.
Anybody else from the council? Anybody from the public? No. Larry? No. Larry, please come forward. Again, state your name.
Larry Fish again. We're not opposed to a stopgap measure, but only if the council understands it's a stopgap measure. I mean, it needs to be revisited. This is way too prohibitive and has a lot of issues with certain wording, and it's been pushed through real quick, as Peg said, as a tourniquet. But there has to be some common sense and some middle ground. Like Carol has said, change the sign a couple of times or something like that. I mean, South County Charm, I understand that. But 10 years ago, that was the reason why everybody didn't want South County Commons, that generates over $1 million a year in taxes to the town. So I understand the South County Charm, and I think that 100 and some odd years ago, the council then had horseless carriages as a big issue on its agenda, and their prohibition. All right, so I think we have to change with the times. But if you vote in favor of this, I think there has to be some kind of notation that this has to be revisited really quick. I mean, it can't go on and be studied with charrettes and 48 public hearings. I think it needs to go really quick, kind of like the quickness that it got to you tonight.
Thank you, Larry. Anybody else? Well, I'd just like to add my 2 cents into it, because I have to wait for everybody else to speak. But I think that we're talking about here is that that we're putting this up just to kind of stop the flow, because we don't know what's coming down here. And I think it's better to be guarded and protecting the town. And I can't disagree with the planning board and their talk about the small town character and losing that feel for South County. That's why South Kingstown, really, in particular, not even South County, our town itself. Everything we've done to save the open space, to keep Main Street, a viable place, to keep Main Street looking as like it did even, when those buildings were first built. It's something we take pride in. To see these LCDs on every street corner, that I find offensive. I find people who've said I think your sign is very nice, it's very pretty, it's a very vibrant sign. But there are other people who just absolutely hate it. So we have to kind of balance on that. So we don't know what the technology is that's going to change it, and I think that's what we're trying to kind of cushion against and protect ourselves from coming. It's not anti-business at all, and I agree with Larry that we can be flexible and agree to have some relaxant, type changes in this particular ordinance. But as we're saying, we've reached out. I think Jeff has reached out. Vin has talked to some people in the public about having this ad hoc, committee to kind of get a feel on what's best for the town. So I think that right now we have to stop before everybody puts their things in, and then we have technology that we can't control. That's really what we're trying to do here. We don't want a sign that you can see from, the space shuttle either. And I think that's the prudent way to go with the town. It's not being anti-business. It's just trying to keep the small town charm of the town of South Kingstown and take baby steps to where we can be agreeing with the business community and keep the people in the town happy too, that don't lose that rural feel. I think that's all that is. It might be a stopgap measure. You might want to call it that. I think it's just being prudent and not really, letting the floodgates open up with everybody changing their signs. I think that's what the council is really trying to balance here. But again, I think we can have meetings and again have agree to relax some of the audience as we go through. We're really trying to treat everybody fairly is the bottom line here. So that's my 2 cents on it. So I guess I'll let the council make a motion on what they want to do. Polly?
Could I suggest that we have a moratorium of on this provision here? This shall include but not be limited to electronic, that whole thing, and have a moratorium and then revisit it again in 2 months, 4 months?
I have to agree with Polly. I think we need to look into this more. If we could, like, halt the new signs, but at the same time, not put it through all of the public hearings and all of the, it took us a while to get here. And, once we sign on to this ordinance, it's going to take us a while to change it. It's not going to happen overnight. And it's going to take a lot of people to come forward to say they want it changed. So I think with the EDC expressing that they would like input, and the Chamber of Commerce has discussed the input that they'd like to have, before we prohibit all of this, which I think we have an ordinance that already has some teeth in it, that not everybody in Wakefield is going to run out and get an LED sign and a flashing digital programmable ink or whatever it is. I think we have some teeth in the ordinance as is. Now, if we could do a moratorium, stop any new signs for 2 months till we figure this all out with the input from the business community. I mean, we still need to look at the sandwich shop signs. I mean, we have that issue that's got to be addressed. So maybe we should take it all in together.
We mentioned that the signs had not been really changed since 1974, I believe. 76. So it might be a good time to look at them.
Michael?
They could set an expiration date if they adopt it.
Mike, what would we, if in fact there was a moratorium, what in fact do you do with applications now before?
Oh, no, what you would do is that you could adopt this ordinance tonight with a sunset provision that says it will expire, as of December 31st unless the council takes further action. That's the way I would approach it.
So we have it advertised and we do what was advertised.
Right, in other words,
meeting, yeah.
My suggestion would be you adopt the ordinance as advertised, but you put a
But put a
sunset
limit
provision on it. And then as long
sunset.
as the council acts again before whatever date you pick expires, then you'd be covered. I guess it would be an incentive for you to
give it that long.
act on it before the expiration.
Sounds good.
I'm not sure, Kath.
Carol seems to think that it might need.
No, I think December is too long. I think we have to address this. I mean, the economy is so bad, these people need to advertise, and we need to show them the perimeters of what they can and can't do.
The only concern that I have is this council is addressing this issue, and after the next election, there could be 5 different people sitting here, and to have that, a sunset expire December 31st, I think that could then cause another whole set of problems on top of what we have.
You can choose any date you want. As someone said 3 or 4 months, I was just counting 3 or 4 months out.
Maybe another month. I mean, that's about all we have, right? What do we have left before the
October
election?
31st, let's go with it.
We'd have to do it soon.
Yeah, within 60 days.
The only thing I would remind you too is that you're dealing with the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance is going to require that the planning board provide a recommendation to the council. Once the council orders advertisement, it takes 3-4 weeks of advertising. So you do have a notice period that you need to build into whatever time schedule you want to incorporate into a sunset.
Both planning and zoning can listen to the EDC. The EDC can be part of this process.
Yeah, I mean, there's been other things rolled into this tonight as far as, is the council looking at the overall sign ordinance. Dealing with the overall sign ordinance is different from dealing specifically with what's on the table tonight. What's on the table tonight is the LED signs. If there's provisions that the planning board or the business community would like to see, then that can be dealt with in an expedited way. But if you're going to incorporate all of the other provisions of the sign ordinance to be reviewed and still assume that you're going to need at least 5 weeks from the time it leaves the planning board's desk till the time it's heard before the council, you're not putting a lot of time in place. But whatever time schedule you give us, we'll task the staff to get that accomplished.
I think the thing that needs a limit is the LED signs and others like it. I think we would be biting off a little bit too much if we discussed if we thought we would come to a conclusion on all the signs.
I have no difficulty with dealing with that, but the implication was that there was other parts of the sign ordinance that needed to be reviewed simultaneously.
I made that mistake. I kind of
And
bundled them together.
all I'm saying is that, tell me what you want, and we'll get that done for you,
Yeah.
but I need to know exactly what it is, what the expectation is.
My thought is really that we just, the thing we need to limit is the LED signs and their type. Before we decide what kind we will accept in town and what kinds we don't want. So why don't we put something in with that provision, that they be looked at?
How long though, Polly? What do you want to do for a date?
But that, why don't we ask Dale?
What's the soonest we could address this? I mean, realistically, with the advertising and everything?
Just on what's before you tonight?
Right.
Just on the signs, the LED signs.
Just the LEDs, Steve.
I would
Lamar?
imagine that we can get any commentary that the business community has on that and the Economic Development Committee during the month of September, and then get it to the planning board for the beginning of October.
Larry?
Planning board and the zoning meets the 14th and the 15th of September. I think they actually meet tomorrow, but it's too late.
Larry, when are you meeting?
Yeah, I was going to say, ask Larry.
That's the
You
9th.
think you could squeeze that on your
It's the
agenda, Larry?
You asked for it. You got it.
So it could go then till, we could have a moratorium till?
Well, once it goes through with economic development, it's going to have to be reviewed with the planning board, and then the planning board would recommend out to the council. So I'm assuming that if by mid-September, economic development has talked with the business community and feels comfortable with what revisions they're looking at, it would then be reviewed by the planning board probably in late September, and they would have something for you first meeting in October, which would then be advertised for 3 weeks. So
So we
at
could
most,
say
you're into November.
November 1st?
It would be either the first or the second meeting in November, first meeting at the earliest probably, and second meeting as a reasonable expectation.
No, I think we should put a sooner date on it, honestly.
Well, let's have the second
agree.
meeting in November.
I'm checking.
I think we should go for the November.
Second meeting in November.
Which is
Everybody makes contact.
the 23rd.
December 3rd gives you more flexibility in case they have a problem meeting or something like that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, if it hasn't been resolved, obviously we can't hear it.
It can also be approved in November, even though it says December is the deadline. It doesn't mean we have to wait to December. That's what I'm saying. In case there's a problem with them meeting or something comes up, just to give yourself a little bit more flexibility and not limit yourself.
I mean, if there's a problem and you need a time extension, what you would do is to order advertisement of an extension of the delay.
Again, it's just ordering advertising some more. That's why I'm just trying to give it a little bit more of a, you can be approved beforehand, but just give yourself the flexibility out till December 31st, say something arises, so you don't have to do that again. Just making it easier on everybody.
Actually, no, never mind. Our meetings in November are the 9th and the 23rd.
We'll do the 23rd. If you feel November.
8th and
22nd.
22nd of November.
I'm sorry, yep, the 8th and the 22nd.
Steve, when did you say the planning board would meet in September?
They'd be meeting probably first meeting in October. What time, when is that,
It's
Vinnie?
meeting on the 14th of September, and then again and recommendations on zoning matters comes as not at their work session, but at one of their regular sessions. So their regular session for October would be on October the 12th.
So the EDC could not give them a recommendation in time for their September meeting? They can't cover the two topics?
Well, I think the planning board may, have some thoughts about, whatever recommendation they do receive. I think, they took a very strong position on this particular issue, and I imagine, there's, with the discussion tonight and some changes that may be advocated from certain quarters, they're going to want to evaluate that as well. So I can't speak for them and of what their time frame may be, but their recommendation on zoning does come, zoning matters, at one of their regular sessions. So it would be, I guess, the October meeting would probably be the earliest, reasonably you could consider, some kind of new thoughts or other direction from the planning board or recommendations from the planning board.
Because most likely it would be the 25th of October when you would be ordering advertisement. And so the first meeting that we'd be able to get it into would be the November 22nd.
Okay.
I think it'd be wise to open it to December in case there's an issue arises, but if that's what the council feels, that's fine. I think there was another question coming from,
Bob Traeger again. I was just wondering why, like one council member, I think it was Carol, that said, or maybe it was Ella, you could have some new members on the town council.
they don't get sworn in until January.
What date did you just pick?
Isn't it January we usually do our swearing in? When do we do our swearing in? No,
No,
it's in
it's right
November,
after the
December,
election.
November. Yeah, you're right, I'm sorry.
Kathy, we're not picking you up.
No. I have to hold it closer. We do it right, when do we do the swearing in? God, I've done enough.
I think it's right after the election.
Right after the election.
So that's. What was I thinking?
I don't know. New Year.
Well, my point is, if there are some new people on the council, to either have the vote 1 week before they get there or have the vote take place right when they get there. This seems like a fairly important issue for the town. I agree with the whole aesthetics value of signage. I'm totally with you on that one. But there are a lot of issues here, and I'm not sure rushing it through is going to get an ordinance or anything that is going to look good to the business community or the rest of us. So I think this is something that will take a little bit of time. I think it's somewhat complicated. So my suggestion would be, since businesses in this town do the bulk of their business in the summer, Christmas is busy, so to come to a decision in mid-December isn't even going to help too many businesses in my view. So to put it off to January, February, that still gives them, any new members on the council, time to come to a decision, and it gives businesses time to put up signage that complies before the summer season. That's my suggestion.
I would suggest that we ask the people concerned to, that we have a moratorium on the LED lighting and electronic messaging boards until November 22nd.
Polly, we can't use that word moratorium because we can't put a moratorium in this evening. We can pass the ordinance with a date on it, but it's not a moratorium.
A sunset date, Polly.
Okay.
Sunset.
So what is the word I need to use?
Sunset.
Well,
Sunset.
yeah, we can put a sunset provision, and then I guess I'll point out that there are changes to Section B and C of 803, and I think all of your comments with regard to the sunsetting apply to Section B and not to Section C, where we have the right to pay. So what we could do, once you have to close your public hearing first, but once it's closed, the motion would be, you can read the motion that's been proposed to you, and then we'll just add a sentence that states that the provisions of 803B will expire as of November 22nd, 2010. And that will automatically happen unless you act on it on that date or sometime before then.
So that's the motion I would like to make.
Well, if you're finished with the public hearing, you need to first close the public hearing.
I move we close the public hearing.
Oh,
Can I
wait a
just
minute.
ask one question?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry. Dale, is this timeframe, are you comfortable with this timeframe for posting and advertising? And
I will do what I can do when I receive the ordinance for order of notice
Yeah. You think it's cutting it short, Steve? November 22nd?
Well, I think the only downside is that if the 22nd comes and goes, the original ordinance that's in place today goes back into effect.
We definitely need to act.
And then we go back to that, I mean, the original ordinance is not that,
I mean, but
it's
at
still
that-
restrictive.
Well, at that point, if somebody wanted to apply for another license, there'd be a license for a sign, there'd be another grandfathered right that would be there. Do I think that they can get through the process? It depends on whether the, Economic Development Committee puts out a recommendation and that the planning board accepts that or revises it and is prepared to make a recommendation to the council within the time schedule. Could it fit the time schedule? Yes. But certainly I don't control the actions of the planning board. But again, the only downside is that the ordinance goes back into effect as it is tonight.
Before you close, I think that Larry was getting back up.
I was just gonna add bicycles, but Vinnie said we can do that a little later that year.
Okay.
The town council had mentioned that, where you had pedestrian. I just asked Vinnie, why not bicycles too? But, that's neither here nor there.
Steve, in just a couple of sentences, I need to be clear on our current ordinance. The current ordinance would allow flashing, changeable, intermittent, et cetera, multiple times during the day, or is that 24-hour clock fixed in there one time a day?
The interpretation of the zoning officer is that the 24-hour clock is fixed, whether it's a grandfathered sign or whether it's CVS coming in tomorrow. That's what his interpretation has been, and that hasn't been challenged at this point. Could Peg decide that she wanted to challenge that provision? Certainly she could, and it would be appealed to the zoning board for an interpretation. But right now, the administrative position of the zoning officer is that one-time change every 24 hours would be in any type of operating procedures for the two businesses that had access to those LED signs.
Okay. So intermittent is not allowed, motion stuff's not allowed?
That's correct. None of that would be allowed. That's not allowed today. That's what he has indicated he wouldn't allow with the signs that, the sign that was put up. The sign owner agreed that based on what the ordinance said, that they didn't have the ability to use that.
Council?
I think we should vote on it as written and decide. We can always, if there's people want to change their minds later, I guess it can be brought back up, but I think the ordinance as written before we change it, it already prohibits signs which incorporate in any manner any flashing or moving illumination, animation, or illumination which varies in color. So it's pretty prohibitive to begin with. And then it gives us more time.
But yet Wakefield Prescription and CVS have been able to put it in, so it's a question of if you're going to allow more of them to go, and this goes back to the original question of what this is that you're going to prohibit, except for grandfather and the ones who put it in the other businesses to come forward with it. So you put a prohibition on it. And again, we can agree to have relaxant and review the ordinance later on. So what I was saying before, and try to treat everybody fairly, like we talked about, and Margaret brought up that, the businesses have been approached about the ad hoc, committee to review what's good. I think the EDC can get involved with the committee too and talk about it. And then we can go back and relook at this ordinance. I think that it's up to this council to make a decision on this.
Can I just ask one more question? With what Peg brought up in reference to the verbiage, all zoning districts, do we need to clarify that?
I don't think we do because it says signs in all
Okay.
zoning districts. And since signs are well-defined by a humongous
Okay.
paragraph, I think we're all set.
Good.
Because you wouldn't want a sign, regardless of what it looks like, in a residential zone.
Thank you.
No, we have not closed. Any other questions from the council? Jim looks like he's pondering, but, okay.
So I'm going to second, if everybody's ready, Polly's motion.
Ali started making a motion. Okay, there's a second.
What was the motion?
To close.
Oh, to
Close the
close.
public
Yep.
hearing.
I'll take a stab.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously to close the public hearing. Now, what is the council's prerogative?
Shall I read the resolution? The town council hereby approves public hearing item 7C. Should I put in section B?
Actually, what I was going to recommend is you read the entire thing as is, and then add, the amendment to section 803B shall expire at midnight on November 23rd, 2010. I think that way you pick up all the language about incorporating and referencing the planning board decision, et cetera.
Okay, so this will be the resolution. 7C, concerning amendments in section 803 of the South Kingstown zoning ordinance. Signs prohibited in all zoning districts. In approving these amendments, that council specifically incorporates and references the recommendations and findings contained in the planning board's correspondence of July 14th, 2010.
Then I would add, the amendment to section 803B shall expire at midnight on November 23rd, 2010.
I'll add that.
Is there a second?
Second.
I moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Carol, did you have discussion?
No. So long as we're going to relook at this, I think we can live with a couple of months. Going to have to do that anyway, anybody who's already got the sign.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, next we move on to communications. A communication
I
dated,
thought we were going to do C. I thought C was separate of
I
this.
think she read that into her thing, that C was, and she did C, we approved C, and B, we did the
God,
sunset.
I'm losing my mind.
Mike,
So-
do you have any language on that?
It will be revisited.
Well, that's my fault, because I absolutely
Thank you.
oppose C, the language in here. I did not, we didn't even discuss that during the whole period of discussion.
Well, he didn't understand C. Well, he voted, but he,
Oh, I
Polly
voted.
had
I mean,
just,
if-
Polly just had gone with Mike about saying that we wanted to include C, but we wanted to put the sunset on B. I didn't know.
Yeah, I thought we were, I thought, Michael, I thought you said B.
Yeah, right. In other words,
B, not C.
B, but not C. C is where you added pedestrian and sidewalk. In other words, B dealt with the LED, et cetera.
Right.
C was the public safety issue about pedestrians and sidewalks.
I certainly understand that. I guess I thought the whole discussion was on B and the lead stuff, not on C. So what do I have to do to scream about that? Because I'm absolutely opposed to this language in C.
So then you would have wanted to vote against that motion.
I would have voted against that motion, but I thought we should have just tackled this motion with B at the moment. All the discussion this evening's been on B.
So you have a couple approaches. You can leave it as is, that's one approach, or you can have a separate vote. If you want to take up a separate vote and separate the votes on B and C and re-vote on B and vote on
Can we
C.
legally do that?
Well,
Part of
We just
our,
voted 5-0, yes.
Yeah, you did, but to change a vote requires a majority of those in the majority to vote to reconsider. So in other words, if
Okay,
three of you,
we haven't had to do this one, well, maybe a long, long time ago.
right, if
So I
three
can
of
make
you,
that
Robert's
motion, then,
rules.
I can make that
you,
motion.
you're in the majority.
To uncouple this.
So you can make
'cause
the
I was
motion
part of the
to
majority.
decouple it and to vote again separately, but that would require a second and a majority vote to do that, yes.
Excuse me. The only concern that I have is now, the audience that was here to speak on this has now left, and I have a real concern with that.
So the other thing you can do is put it on the agenda again at your next meeting and ask, and then have Jim make a motion at the next meeting to reconsider the vote you had at this meeting, and then it would be advertised and,
This is the advertising issue now, Dale.
yeah.
Mike, I will
So
not
you're
be at
right.
the next
You're right. We've got
I don't know.
3 weeks. I'm sorry. Yeah, Jim, this is going to be a lot more, this is not just a regular ordinance, it's a zoning ordinance. It would require, we closed the public hearing, we had the vote, and so now it's going to require 3 weeks of advertising, et cetera. It's going to be involved. I'm sorry. I'm not thinking that this was a regular ordinance. It's actually a zoning ordinance.
Either.
Nothing to say, though, that you've made known that,
For the record, you can state that now, that you, if you want to do that for the record, Jim. I guess it's probably the best that we can do in this.
What's your problem with it, Jim? Do you want to mention
Because
that?
I don't want to, for the next 30 days anyway, eliminate the opportunity for businesses in Wakefield, anywhere else, not to have their sandwich boards out there. I was hoping to maybe find a common denominator for square feet, how to put them so they don't block wheelchair access, et cetera. But as this reads, right now, that the enforcement can take sandwich boards off the street or not?
No, that's still coming. No. That isn't, you're having that committee look at all of that in terms of the sandwich boards, et cetera. You haven't,
So there's no issue of violation notices for any businesses right now that have out sandwich boards?
well, no, that's not true.
Well, that's what I
Yeah.
want to get at.
Right, but you couldn't change that.
Yes.
Well, here's my point. You couldn't have changed that tonight anyhow. The issue of the sandwich board violations, that wasn't before you this evening.
Colored signs in a manner that will illumination or obstruct the vision of the driver, the pedestrian.
You know, it said hazards to public safety, you know.
This is just dealing with the flashing ones, not the sandwich boards at this point, Jim.
Well,
You-
except
I
that
can
you
see
did
how you wrote
add
that.
2 words to section C tonight with your vote. You added or pedestrian or sidewalks to your
Yes, we did.
ordinance tonight. But the issue that Jim is speaking to, which is the issue we discussed at the beginning of the meeting, at the pre-meeting hearing, workshop session rather, that could not have been voted on tonight anyhow. That's got to be a new proposal that comes through with exactly, Jim, all the things you're mentioning, the size of these things, the height, making sure there's clearance for wheelchairs, et cetera. Right now, they're prohibited. I think what the thought is, if there is a consensus that you would allow sandwich boards with certain restrictions. I think that's what the discussion needs to be going forward. But you could not have made that change tonight, no matter what, because it wasn't advertised.
So there your answer lies, that you wouldn't have been able to change it anyways. Are you content with that?
No, my mistake. No, I'm not content with that. I just worry. I mean, is Jeff going to be out here now talking to businesses? This is what I want to know. What happens tomorrow? If anyone puts out a sandwich board, what happens tomorrow?
The sandwich board is the same question as it was yesterday or tomorrow, Jim. It's part of the ordinance. The ordinance right now says that the signboards are not allowed on the sidewalks. That has nothing to do with what you discussed this evening. So the answer to you is, we're going to be doing the same thing based on the existing ordinance that's in place.
If I may, the hazards to public safety, is that referring to the flashing signs? Because it's not clear that that's what it's referring to.
Well, you're only seeing section 803 of the ordinance here. You're not seeing the entire section that deals with Article 8 of the signs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's where the confusion is coming from.
The sandwich board signs are already prohibited. They're prohibited, they're very well defined in the ordinance. I have not issued any violation notices, and I'm not rushing to the counter in pad and pencil to issue any right now, because they're instituting,
Right.
or the Chamber of Commerce and Andy is setting up a meeting along with planning and myself to try to see how we could rework this. We're really not out there to punish anyone. We're trying to bring things into today's world. If the council feels and the planning board feels that perhaps they should be permitted, and they change the ordinance to that effect, that's fine with me. But there's really no witch hunt going on.
And this is this ad hoc that you had mentioned about bringing people, if people had issues and concerns, to come forward and work with the town regarding even the sandwich boards.
Yes, they have. Mr. Notter is
Right.
opened that discussion up and that communications, and
And that's an ongoing communication that's
it's
going on right
a
now?
matter of actually setting up a
Correct.
date when everyone will be available
Okay.
to discuss it, and again, that's a different issue in itself.
All right, so it is separate from the lead issue. We have to make another proposal
Correct, yes.
from council or planning board or EDC, who makes it, or?
Yeah, I think EDC and business community are gonna work together. The proposal would then go to the planning board, if there's any change to the zoning ordinance, to the planning board, they make recommendations.
I mean, the main dilemma that we're faced with is that we've got complaints coming in from individuals saying that they want the boards removed, and saying, why are you not enforcing your own ordinance? And what our position has been is to advise the businesses that are putting those signs out that they are illegal under the ordinance. And the main concern, as I said in the prior session, isn't so much the signboards, but to ensure that the sidewalks are not blocked for safe passage with carriages or wheelchairs, or that the height of those signs were such that a child couldn't be behind the signboard as he walked out from the curb. My office has offered to the business community an opportunity to talk about the sign ordinance and different changes that they think would be necessary. We've made it clear that if we were going to be supportive of anything going to the planning board that was suggesting that those sandwich board signs would be allowed, what we would want to do is to make sure there were dimensional regulations in place to ensure the sidewalks would not be blocked, and secondly, that there would be a height limitation on them. We've opened that invitation to the Downtown Merchants Association. We've opened that invitation to the Chamber of Commerce. The Planning Board has indicated an interest to participate as well. But that had nothing to do with what was on the agenda tonight. That's something as we move forward. But I'll be honest with you, some of the complaints that we've had are strong complaints. Other types of signs that we've got problems with are the feather signs, and whether or not they pose a threat to safety based on them being very, very close to the drive surfaces. So there are a number of things that need to be looked at with the sign ordinance, but no one is trying to put anybody out of business. But we're also faced with the dilemma of having to enforce ordinances that are in place. And contrary to some people's opinion, they think that the ordinance should be enforced as written. So we're going to try to work with that aspect of it, but it really had nothing to do with tonight's agenda item.
Thank you.
I don't think you've missed the opportunity yet, Jim. Hopefully it will get ironed out before it gets to the council, and everybody will be happy with it. So next, we're going to move on to communications. Item A, communication dated July 20th, 2010, from Grady Miller, Town Manager, seeking support of a resolution adopted July 6, 2010 by the Narragansett Town Council requesting the suspension of the newly adopted Catch Share Sector Management Program imposed on the fishing industry in the Northeast by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is received, placed on file, and the Town Council further directs. And what's the council's pleasure on this item?
We discussed it during the work
Go ahead,
session.
speak into the microphone.
Oh, we discussed it at the work session. And we certainly are in support of this, and I would think we would want to send a communication to Grady Miller showing our support.
I concur. Our sister town has the same issues our people do.
Yes.
Makes
I
sense.
agree.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, we move on to a communication dated July 28th from Michael Shanak, President Jamestown Committee on LNG Threat, inviting council members to Congress of Councils on September 8th, hosted by the group, and that the Jamestown Town Council to discuss a proposed Hess Weaver's Cove LNG siting at Mount Hope Bay is received, placed on file, and the town council further directs. Council.
Gentleman's here.
Oh, please come forward. State your name.
Hi, Peter Converse. I'm a resident of Jamestown, Rhode Island, and I'm also representing the LNG Town-Appointed Threat Committee tonight. Really, I'm here just to, first I want to thank you for giving me a moment to speak. I'll try and be brief. I know there's a lot of other people. My intention is really just to invite you to this Congress Council and encourage you to attend. I know you may feel a bit detached being in South County, Washington County, but I think it's a socioeconomic issue that will have ramifications throughout the whole state, having tankers come into the bay up to 2 times a week, and bridge closures also, which may affect some of your constituency who does commute back and forth to Newport, and also a lot of students that are in this area that depend on Newport for jobs, as there's not a full economic job opportunity here for them. So there are a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of people that use the bridge. That's one aspect. And there's also that the fact that a lot of the security forces for this proposal will be utilizing federal and state funds. When one of these tankers come in, they're usually two helicopters. There's a lot of state police enforcement. There's a lot of Coast Guard involved, and so that's just another. In these economic times, there's already a strain on those types of assets. So really, I had a script here, but I just really wanted to be brief, and hope you will consider coming up to Jamestown on September 8th is when we will be holding that. It's a morning event, and we're just trying to unify all the communities along Narragansett Bay, going up and down each side, and also Fall River, Scituate, Rehoboth, and Somerset, our other communities. And of course, we pretty much have all the Aquidneck Island communities attending already. So I just want to make a personal appearance. I know you've received letters, and if there are any questions, I might be able to answer maybe as well.
Anybody from the council? Question for Peter?
The location?
Go ahead, Paul.
The location, is it at Jamestown Town Chambers?
Yes, actually, it's not going to be in Town Chambers. It's going to be at the Jamestown Recreation Center, which is right down on the East Ferry. It actually overlooks the bay, and we'll be having a number of speakers. Pretty much, we don't have any set in stone right now, but we've got some potentially lined up. Maybe Richard Clark, if you're familiar with him, he's been very instrumental in national security, and a couple of other people as well who will be appearing. So it'll be a nice venue for that.
Jim, did you have, oh, sorry.
Just help me out. Has this gotten federal and state approvals? What approvals have been given? In other words, are you appealing approvals of this whole process, or where does this stand?
There's been no approval yet, and as you know, Hess and Weaver's Cove has been fighting for approvals for 8 years. They're very persistent, and they're very determined to push this through. It's not even really of great economic interest to them, because there's no surety that they're going to be making substantial profits. The real risk is to the community. But the FERC is probably set to give them approval for this. They've never been denied. FERC has never denied a request, an application for such a siting.
Okay, so that's, who else do they need from the federal level, besides federal
Well,
energy?
in 2006, FERC has pretty much been given across the board approval, across the board jurisdiction to approve such a request. And it can be appealed, and but there's a very limited time frame of when it can be appealed. And part of this is to make sure there's a strategy in place legally that we can come back and try and thwart this effort from Hess. And the thing is, they're much closer than many people realize to getting this pushed through. So that's why it's of the utmost importance to try and nip this in the bud. So.
My last question, does
Yeah.
Hess have a nearby facility? I mean, in New York City, somewhere else? Do you know the closest?
Hess actually does not have a LNG facility that I'm aware of. There is plenty of LNG accessibility in this area. There's there's Boston, of course, Everett, and there's the offshore unloading facility, and then there's also a pipeline that comes down from Newfoundland as well. So there's a surplus, and they really just want to get their own spot in place in the event that it does become economically feasible for them.
Thank you.
Ella, did you have another question? I'm sorry.
I just, I have what was sent to us. I think it was July 22nd, and there is not a location place here, so I didn't know if you knew the exact.
Yeah, that when we sent that out, I believe it was, yes, it was July 22nd. We
think
did
July
not include a
19th.
location. We were not 100% on location, but we will be actually putting a website up which will give some information as to the specifics and update on speakers and locations. So,
Okay.
and we will keep you informed of that. We've only got 5 of us on the committee, but we're delegating different towns for different people to call and do follow-ups with. So.
Just to let you know too, Peter, we have supported, opposing the LNG
Oh, yes.
terminal, all the different times that it's come through with this council unanimously. And so, just to kind of give you a background of where we stood with that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So if there's more information, I'm available that night, and I would be glad to attend.
Okay.
But I would need the address to plug into my GPS.
Okay. All right. It's very accessible. So.
Just let the town know, I guess, the town manager know. Peter, I caught, and I didn't catch your last name.
Converse.
My last name is Converse.
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 Commerce. Okay, so the motion is that, Ella?
Ella will be our representative.
I'm going to make a motion to, I guess, place it on file and invite anybody from the town council that's interested on September 8th. So it's Communications B.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you. Next is a communication dated August 3rd, 2010, from Cheryl Foster to T. Keith Richards, EMS Director, complimenting the town's emergency medical services team for their response and treatment of her husband, William Colin McCullough, during a recent incident, and is received and placed on file. And Polly?
That was such a nice letter. Could we write her back a note thanking her for taking the time to write such a detailed letter to the council and how much we all appreciated it?
Actually, I called her because
good.
I recognized Colin McCullough as one of the persons that we had placed on the library board to check and see how he was doing, and he's doing very well. So, and I told Cheryl that I would mention this letter and saw it come in on the packet. That it was on the consent agenda. That will. It really is a very nice letter talking about just how positive all the personnel were keeping her calm while her husband was having a medical emergency, and the quick response, and how well the patient arrived at Rhode Island Hospital, and even how the emergency room staff said that patients that come up from South County Hospital always seem to be in much better shape for the trauma units to deal with, that they know that they're going to be stabilized, and everything that is medically necessary that could be done in a moving vehicle, like such as an ambulance, has been done for the patient. So actually, it was kudos from Cheryl, and I guess really from the Rhode Island Hospital emergency room staff. So really, it's always nice to get a nice piece of information or a nice letter like this, really complimenting our EMS. So our kudos to Keith and the rest of the men and women who are our EMS department. Great people, and very nice people to work with too. So, and Cheryl says that he's doing well, and that you know, I said hopefully he'll take it slow, and hopefully that the library board wasn't too much of a stress for him.
It's our fault.
It's our fault. And she says, no, he loves it, he wants to stay, So we'll keep him on there. So anyways, I just thought I'd pass on that information. Very, very nice letter. So
Maybe, since you called Kathy, maybe we could just place it on file. That would be fine.
Yeah, well, soon card.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is a communication dated August 6, 2010, from Bob Silverstein, Executive Director of the Emily Fund, requesting a proclamation recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, is received, placed on file, and the Town Council further directs.
Well, we discussed this in the work session, and we want to support this item, Communications D. I believe that we have, in the past, made October, recognized October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I suggest that we do it again.
Moved, is there a second?
Second?
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is a communication received August 11, 2010, from Councilman James O'Neill, requesting adoption of a resolution in support of a shoreline forum to address erosion issues, is received, placed on file, and the Town Council further directs. Jim, do you want to talk on this item?
Yeah, I've been following a few events in some of our neighboring towns, most recently in Narragansett, bringing in experts such as Dr. King, Dr. Boothroyd, people we know. Charlestown's been discussing this issue with the state agencies, even including the potential of some barge activity, slurring of sand. Westerly has looked at this. The town of South Kingstown has certainly covered this in detail from many aspects over the years. But frankly, I'd love to be in a room with these experts. I'd really like to know if there's absolutely nothing that we can do. Is there anything proactive in front of us? Is there any way to have a pool of money? I would hate to have one town be lucky enough to get some funding from the federal government when maybe there's a more dire emergency situation along the rest of the shoreline somewhere else. So everyone has done this individually. I'd love to get a group together here, at least the folks in the know, and we certainly have them around here, including the Army Corps of Engineers, maybe someone from the EPA, but I'd love to hear this, and I'd love our citizens to know whether or not there's any possibilities of better protection than our reaction right now. I don't know if Steve, have we ever had a forum of folks like this? I know we certainly have written material, but when can folks out there who have their homes and businesses on the waterfront, when can they hear this face-to-face with some of these experts? Maybe give us some ideas on how to move forward.
I think the idea of having some type of a meeting involving several communities makes sense in a global way of dealing with coastal erosion. I think the main concern that I would share with you is, I think we have put out a report that in April of this year, we've also got an additional grant to be looking specifically at what's the future of Matunic Beach Road and how do we provide public access and safety for access to all of the businesses and homes in that area. I think that if you're going to have this type of a summit that you've suggested, it should be global to deal with all those issues. But I think South Kingstown still needs to deal specifically with the issue of Matunic Beach Road and how do we ensure health and safety for that area. So if you're talking about running on two different tracks, one dealing with Matunic and the specific issues associated that a storm could create there, as well as dealing on a second track, which would be how do we deal with the coastal issues that are similar in each of the communities, and possibly ask URI to serve as a facilitator to work with that type of a meeting. I think that's fine, but what I don't want to do is to have it that we're having meetings of the four communities dealing with all four problems simultaneously with the federal government or Corps of Engineers, when we need to look really specifically in terms of our congressional delegation to deal with the imminent threat that's there on Matunic Beach Road. That would be the only concern I would share with you, Jim. We've spent time with that report preparation. We've spent time with a consultant that provided the different options for dealing specifically with Matunic Beach Road. We've dealt with coastal resources, and we're at this point about 2 weeks away from meeting with congressional delegation. I want to make sure that we're able to continue on that vein for that specific issue, sort of a target approach. And then if we're going to use a broad brush and have a summit, it would be dealing with all of the communities on similar issues, but not specifically issues in each of those communities that they're looking for federal support on. I think that what that does is confuse the issue in terms of us being able to solicit the dollars that would be necessary to deal with Matunic Beach Road. So if you deal with it on two tracks, I don't have any difficulty with it. If you are going to incorporate other communities into our discussion on what we need in Matunic, I think it waters down the focus of that issue.
Yeah, I guess that's where I see the problem, is that we individually, obviously, we have to take care of our town and do what we can. We also have Jerusalem, Narragansett, that comes up Succotash Road. I think that's an important area for public safety purposes, as well as what we need to look at our beaches. So there are two. The Charlestown Breachway is another potential issue. Green Hill Pond, which affects South Kingstown. Sheldon Whitehouse was in town talking to Narragansett folks a couple weeks ago. So if that's the kind of target that we have to do initially, then so be it. But I think what we've been absent of having in a room some of these experts. I'd love to hear these folks talk and tell us whether or not we're, pardon the expression, urinating up a rope, or whether we could ever do anything about this. And I don't know that. I can only read this material. I want to see graphs and charts. I want to hear their language. I want to hear them tell us that there's no money, or it has to be an emergency situation. That's the only time we can get money, and that I'm not getting. So if you don't like this, then the council can act accordingly.
I think it's like what Steve was saying, it's two parts. I think that we're on a track right now, and I don't want to impede that either. And we've done our steps on looking at what we can do, and I think there was even public, hearing down at Matunic Elementary School some years back, some of the experts on what we can do to, stop the loss there. But, that is our main point, and what we're losing right there at the Vanilla Bean, at the town beach where it, floods over the Kettle Pond and so forth. And you got to fight for your own. I understand bonding with the other communities, and that's maybe something through the Washington County Regional Planning that we might look at it as another track along with the University of Rhode Island to go along that route. But I don't want to lose the track and the pace that we're doing right now. We're protecting our, like we said, we're up to a, CRMC, and well, who knows whatever has happened there. But with the congressional, when did you say, Steve, that's coming up, or it's?
I'm sorry?
With the congressional delegation.
We're trying to get a meeting set up right now with the White House's office, because they've been down and with us on Matunic Beach really on 3 occasions so far. But I want to go back to Jim. Jim, I am not against what you're proposing.
No, just saying.
Well, it would take months to put together, so why in the world wouldn't you endorse this?
I'm sorry, I'm not
This
hearing.
would take months to put together, so why wouldn't you endorse this? I think each community acting individually is just defeating.
I think you're misinterpreting what I said. What I said to you is that I don't disagree with what you're proposing to do. However, I don't want to assume that if we do have a summit of those other communities, that we're not going to continue to deal specifically with the issue of Matunic. That was what I said to you.
Right. That's where our biggest, that's what I'm just saying, the same thing, our biggest concern is Matunic and working for ourselves. I have no problem with having a summit with any of the other communities. Let's not just lose focus on what we're doing right now with Matunic. We have to fight for ourselves, but certainly we can join forces with them. I didn't know if you would, that's why I threw out the Washington County Regional Planning.
Yes, I thought that was a great idea, and plus the
To stop
University
facilitating it
of Rhode Island, could
with the
we?
university. I mean, that's with the
Well,
professors.
I think Succotash Road is as great a problem as Matunic Beach. So if I don't have a second to move this forward to
No, that's
put
not
this
what we're saying.
together,
We're just
then I'd like to
discussing.
do that.
I think we are
don't
gonna
like the
support this,
position
Jim.
on this.
you
I
have-
think this is
I'm gonna make a
important
motion.
for our neighborhood businesses and residential folks to know. They need to hear from these experts. I think they need to be in the same room and hear from
And
them.
if the council wants me to contact URI and Coastal Resources and set up that type of a meeting, I'd be glad to do it.
And I think that
I'm
would
going to
be
make a motion.
Yeah, can I just
I'm going to make a motion.
Go ahead, make a motion.
I just wanted to say,
No.
Jim,
Ella can make a motion, you can discuss after.
okay, sorry.
I'm going to make a motion to support Jim's motion, communication items E, for Steve to set up some type of meeting with URI and Coastal. And South Kingstown will continue also proceeding forward with the concerns that we have, but we are definitely going to support this motion, Jim.
I'll second it. And could we add
Any
in the
comments?
Washington County?
I don't think that's necessary. I really think this is meant for these 4 communities here. There are 9 members of Washington County. If it gets just too big and too out of control, I'm really trying to get the shoreline communities here who are under attack. That was the reason for the resolution.
Okay.
Towns that are interested in it could get on board. And you have, the people working there who, focus on this type of stuff, even, for all communities and subsets of the community, but that's okay.
So we'll just leave it the way Ella
Right.
said it.
That's fine.
So was there a
And I
second?
seconded it.
So moved and seconded. Any discussion? Carol?
I just wanted to say, Jim, I think it's a good idea to have a summit, especially for educational purposes, so we can all find out what each other is doing. But I have to agree that we have to stay on our own course. We don't want to divert from our own interests and our job here is to take care of South Kingstown. And if we're already meeting with Senator Whitehouse, we certainly don't want him coming down here to take care of everybody else and not address our interests. So, but I do support the summit as a second tool in the whole process.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, next we move on to a communication received August 11th from Councilman James O'Neill requesting adoption of a resolution in support of removing the master levy from the Rhode Island ballot as received, placed on file, and the town council further directs.
Well, I think I've put this forward a few times in the past. Always wanted to have clarity in language when it comes to voting and specifically the ballot. This one is, I wanted this community to join these 24 other communities, and I'm going to name them: Barrington, Charlestown, Coventry, East Providence, Exeter, Gloucester, Hopkinton, Jamestown, Lincoln, Little Compton, Middletown, Newport, New Shoreham, North Kingstown, North Smithfield, Portsmouth, Richmond, Situate, Smithfield, Tiverton, Warren, West Greenwich, Woonsocket, and Westerly by referendum, that have thrown their support for the elimination of this, what I feel is just the most antiquated way of voting. And also, more and more people that I've talked to over the years, no one quite understands how it works, and may have actually negated many of their votes in the past. So I would like us to turn our attention. We're supposed to be an education town. I think it's very important that voters know who they're voting for, why, and who can defend their positions and who cannot. So I think this is a great way to force voters to look at this, look at the candidates individually.
Yes, you have brought this up several times, Jim, I know. I think it's I agree with you. I think it's something that I would be for, too, getting rid of the master lever. But it's the Secretary of State who is in charge of that? Mike, who?
Yes.
I believe that would take action by our General Assembly to remove.
The whole General Assembly. I don't know what good, sending up this again would do.
Well, I think it would add another strong education-oriented community to this list of progressive communities. And I think there is time here that the General Assembly could call themselves back, if the leadership could call themselves back, they could make that decision right after the primary to change that ballot in November. That would be my hope. Asking for the General Assembly to come back might be one of wishful thinking. However, to join these other communities, I think, makes a very positive statement.
What do the rest of you feel?
Jim, I think they had this bill in the last session at the General Assembly, and I don't think it got out of committee. So, I mean, that was just recently. So I'm not sure what we can do with this. And, I mean, to say that we would support that the town leadership prefers the voters not educate themselves, I mean, is that what you're saying? I can't support something that says that. I think you underestimate the voters.
I agree with that, Carol.
I mean, I can't support a bill, that, any kind of resolution that has that 1, 2, 3, fourth whereas.
Well, we can certainly strike that fourth whereas. When the town charter met years ago, they started to change our columns on the ballot to, from what it said, vote for 5 to vote for any 5. Yet you have a town like Narragansett that'll say vote for up to 5. Language is very important in a ballot, very, very important. And I was the only one supporting that. But I'd be happy to strike that just to show the rest of the state that South Kingstown is on board with having an educator voter.
If I can just speak to 1, 2, 3, the fourth. So it is the verbiage, Jim.
I said I would eliminate that. I'm only bringing that up because
The
of what
fifth-
happened in front of the Town Charter Commission a few years ago.
Well, you talked about the third, I thought Carol brought up.
Fourth one. I was on the fourth one.
All right, well, it does say in the third one, voters not educate themselves about the issues and candidates. That's what I
Yeah,
thought you
that's
would.
the one I did,
Yeah, that's the one Carol was dealing with. I'm looking at the fourth one, Jim, and just the verbiage of machine politics and statewide embarrassment and losing battles is not verbiage that I would put my name on.
All right, then if I don't have a second, then I'll have to withdraw it.
Been a motion, is there a second? Oh, hearing none, the motion fails. Next, we move on to communication item F. No, excuse me, G. I have a lot of notes on the side here. Communication received August 11 from Councilman James O'Neill requesting adoption of a resolution concerning the Rhode Island Economic Development Corporation's high-tech and knowledge-based business investment policy is received, placed on file, and the town council further directs. Jim, do you want to speak to this one? Because I was not quite sure what your point was with this one, so I
Well-
appreciate the clarity.
State of Rhode Island, as you know, approved a $125 million loan pool for, quote, knowledge-based industries. And you've probably seen front pages over the last month where, was it 38 studios, Kurt Schilling was awarded $75 million of that $125 million pool, leaving $50 million left. In my past life, I've worked with companies, growing companies and small companies, and I still do. And what I'm concerned about here, of those hundreds of businesses that are looking for capital, some who already have deliverable products where the Schilling Company does not. I am worried that there's going to be a cat fight just to get positioned to get any piece of this money. I'm just concerned about the fact that it is 60% of this pool, and I wanted just to have a process. I wanted to know that, I wanted people in the state to know, those at URI who are working from concept to commercial viability, that they also have a place at this table providing all the right ideas, all the right, if you will, the accounting that's needed, marketing that's needed, product that's needed. I want those folks not to be deficient here when it comes to sit down with these people. So I wanted clarity from Mr. Stokes, who's the executive director of the EDC, and I just wanted known for those small companies, of which there are hundreds here, undercapitalized but with product ideas, who are already Rhode Island companies, They need to have the same kind of treatment, same kind of due diligence done. And I think I think we need to know what the process was for Studio 38, and in fact, how this would apply to other small companies in the state. And as you know, the voters here have approved the high-tech knowledge base of the University of Rhode Island, the new building, the Oceanographic School. There are many potential, tremendous number of ideas that can go from concept to reality, and I want to make sure that they're not in some kind of a new a race for this small remaining pool of money.
You stated it better than I think in the resolution. The resolution, I wasn't sure if you were for it or against it. It was I read it over about 5 times, and I was like, I can't grasp if he's supporting this or not. It just needs a little bit more clarity. I agree that I think the Economic Development Corporation, by handing over that $75 million loan, was an awful lot. Obviously, 60% of the money that was set aside. I know that there's been a lot of questioning of the EDC for it. I think there was a response from the EDC. I went on their website and I was looking it over actually today from Keith Stokes regarding it. And I think that there was some talk about calling for more, a position on the board. Trying to read it. This is the smallest print I've ever seen here that I printed up here, saving ink, I guess. But I'm not in disagreement with you. I just wish it was clarified a little bit better. Because again, I wasn't quite sure. I don't know if the rest of the council felt.
No, yeah, it wasn't that clear, Jim, but,
Okay.
and the other thing, I guess it was a risky proposition, but the fact of the matter is, it's a done deal. And I think it's best for all Rhode Islanders to support it and hope that it works terrifically for the state. At this point, it's not going to turn around. You can't take the deal back. So we should support it and hope that it works.
My resolution, nor have I asked for any retreat from it, nor am I discussing the merits. It was very clear here that I wanted other small businesses to have the same opportunity, the same seat at the table. If they've progressed to the same point that the Studio 38 has, I don't want a catfight from our hundreds of businesses, of Rhode Island businesses, who need to have the same courtesy extended to them by the EDC. That was my concern here.
I agree with what you're saying verbally now, but when you wrote it out, it just doesn't, it doesn't flow that way. What you're saying now makes sense to me. It just didn't in this resolution, is what I'm trying to say. It just, with it's followed by the wealthy angel investors and individually or collectively, simultaneously venture capital firms. I think there's more verbiage there than has to be there to make it a little bit more direct. I think it gets sometimes too wordy and you lose the value of what you're trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say about this. I think that we should stress that, and as other people have called for, that, more presence on the board, some safeguards for the taxpayers if there's some issues on loss, and if they do create jobs, keeping the jobs here in Rhode Island, those shouldn't be the first ones to go if they move people in from out of state. Something to that effect, I would put into a resolution. I think it's something that we can work on and make a little stronger. That's all I'm saying.
And I think a couple of the other issues are one of the big reasons that I don't think New England should be in competition for businesses like this. I'd like to think that we're bigger than that. It would help the whole region. meant to bring in the Boston Globe article where they, well, who knows, I guess we could call it a chuckle. What I find amazing of the Stokes investment here, I don't mind his defense of their due diligence, but his key commentary of provide an alternative to their equity dilution. And if ever you have been involved with startup companies, boy, you give away the store. You raid your pension accounts, savings, everybody in the family goes to work, you give your firstborn, and believe me, it's very difficult. So that's a very interesting comment there, because a lot of the companies I know would also love to avoid equity dilution, and that's why I wanted clarity in the process and who can sit at that table with the EDC. I could dress this up a little bit more, but I think it's, actually I thought it was pretty good, but I can clarify it a little bit, but if I only get that consensus from the council.
I would clarify, that's my
Yeah.
feeling.
I agree. I would
Yeah,
clarify. I think, like, what in fact are the methods of evaluation? That's certainly important, and like Kathy said, having a position on the board from the EDC, the state of Rhode Island. But at this point, I think we all have to support this and hope for the best.
I agree
And
with
hopefully it'll
Carol
bring the
on that.
450 jobs to Rhode Island. And they say that the average pay for these technology-type jobs are like $80,000 a year. So we're talking about good salaries and good jobs coming to the state of Rhode Island. So I'd rather see us be more supportive of what's done, and in the future, we'd like to see more of the process revealed to us as to how they got to this point.
And again, there is no commentary in here about the merits of that investment, nor is there any commentary here about us not supporting the EDC's decision. So that is well off the mark.
I know, Jim, but it has a negative tone, I think.
Well, I thought it was right on the money. Then I will withdraw this if there's, don't have the
Well,
support.
I don't say
from the
withdraw, I
board.
just say if we could tweak it a
wanna
little
bring
bit
it
more.
back?
That's, I don't think that we're in disagreement with, you know, that we could be concerned for the, you know, the taxpayers in the town and the, about where the money goes from. I just think it needs, I just wasn't clear on where you were going with it, if you were pro or con at the end of it, that's all I was saying. And so we could say that, you know, it's here, it's something that, you know, we're concerned about, you know, how it was put together and and we were concerned about that, the University of Rhode Island, the technical school, the Rhode Island School of Design, all those could be, you know, brought in. You mentioned the university here, but, I mean,
I think URI came out in support of it. I think URI came out in support of it, saying that it would, if it works, that the students that they have a certain game-based technology group, that it would be hopeful that they would stay in Rhode Island as opposed to leaving the state, which they're all doing.
I just say that we tweak it a little bit, Jim, a little bit more. That's all we're asking, I think, as a council. I don't know, Polly, if you...
Yes, I haven't said anything, but I agree, because I think, I feel at this point, anything that creates any job at all should be encouraged. And, but I also feel that we should certainly look at what URI is doing, and I know the jobs their different technology could add, and but I think it's a good point, Jim. I just think maybe you could write it in a more constructive way.
What I'll also leave you, Jim, is I'll pass this right down to you. So this is the Keith Stokes, it almost kind of responds to some of your resolutions.
I have copies of that. Yeah, I have copies of that.
So it responds to some of the questions that you have here, and that might be able to be a little bit more stronger in our support of our concerns about making sure that that other money is, the other, you know, 40% that's left of the 125 million is used appropriately for other small businesses. That's all. I think it just needs to be tweaked a little bit more. That's all. I think that we're in full support of it.
That's true, that's true.
That's it. I guess I'm asking you to go back to not to the drawing board, but just tweak it a little bit. If I can bring it back to the next council, or get it back to Steve, you know, for September. And we'll see where we are at. All right? Is that fair?
I will review it.
Okay, thank you. We'll wait, and we'll place that one on to be reviewed, I guess, in September. Is there a motion for that?
I so move.
As to communication, is it which one are we on? G. We're going to review it at the next council session. I make a motion for that.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is H, a communication received August 11th from Councilman James O'Neill requesting adoption of a resolution concerning pension reform is received, placed on file, and the town council further directs. Jim?
Yeah, just over the last few weeks, we've had some difficult news come our way. First from the State Treasurer's Office, $60 million, 18% increase needed from the $330 million to $390 million taxpayer support of state and teacher pensions. $60 million more, 18%. And that's just kind of standing still with the currently pension balance. Those are big numbers. Just reviewing South Kingstown's share of that, looks like we're going to be in the $1 million range. About 80% of that for the teachers and the staff. $1 million that we have to find. I've been at this for 10 years with my fellow council folks here. I've warned you each and every year that the numbers were not supporting anything but some strong medicine, and unfortunately, the General Assembly has not taken the medicine and the strong medicine that they had to give out. Not easy to do, but with the imbalance between the public sector benefits and the private sector paying in those benefits, it's almost egregious, the spread between the two. Jobs have got to be important. I don't want to look at the job situation here. I want to keep as many people working as possible, but this benefit spread is just horrific, and it's got to stop. And unfortunately, the General Assembly in this last session, as our taxpayers in South Kingstown have learned, about $123 million of new taxes were passed the Citizens Way in the state of Rhode Island for the motor vehicle excise tax. A lot of communities, a lot of taxpayers are picking up $5,500 of the $6,000, and the worst part about that is it hurts the poor, hurts the farmers, hurts those that can least afford it. So if that's what the General Assembly is going to do, rather than working on COLAs and advancing the age for retirement pay or ending the double dipping, then we're in deep trouble. And I can only tell you we're financially in a very, very difficult predicament. And I was just going to finally say that I just wish at one time here that you would join me and let the General Assembly know that by not having tackled this issue more strongly over the last 10 years, you have at this particular point poisoned our children and grandchildren's future, and frankly poisoned a lot of our retirees that we hope that will stay in the state of Rhode Island. So hence, that's why my resolution.
Holly.
Take a deep breath. I think that you don't mention in here what shape South Kingstown itself is in, because, as you know, we used to be 100% or over 100% in funding our pension plan, but even today we're 91% in funding our pension plan. I think we've done a great job, and I really, you know, I know you do this every year, Jim, and...
Does it care about the children you profess to care about? This has nothing to do with South Kingstown, Polly.
But that's our job, is really to take care of South Kingstown, not to take care of the entire state. If you want to take care of the state, Jim, go up and run for the state legislature.
Polly, this action, the state is giving us $1 million bill for next year. Where are we going to find $1 million in our budget?
Well...
Where are we going to find it? Right now, people at home are absolutely hurting with this car tax, the excise tax. Everything's coming our way.
And you make that sound like it's a new tax we've put on, and that, after all, as you know as well as I do, the state always took that, and it's just now they're not doing it anymore, and they said the towns can do it. This is not a new tax, really. It's just a new system of getting it. But I mean, I know you, for years you've talked about how terrible it is. It is terrible, but I don't think in Providence the situation is grim. In other areas, Central Falls also. But I think that it's important to keep our focus where we can do some good, and that is in South Kingstown. That's the way I feel.
Thank you, Polly. Carol?
I don't think anyone can disagree that there's got to be changes made to reduce the future costs of the pension system. But I don't propose to be an expert on how to do that, and I do believe that we have an election coming up for governor, and I think if you listen to what the different candidates say, I think you'll hear a lot of this, a lot of pension reform discussion. And I'm not sure if what you're suggesting, is the answer to this problem. Certainly, going forward, there's got to be changes made. There's no doubt about that, Jim, so I can agree with you on that much, but I just don't know what the exact way to go about reforming the state pension system would be. I learned from the newspapers and from the politicians and, the things that I hear in the news. So I can support you on that one issue that, yes, it needs to be reformed as we go forward. I don't know how much change can be made to the people who have already invested like 30 years in their pension. I think that's, they have relied on these benefits to some degree.
Ella?
There are bits and pieces that I do agree with Jim in your resolution. I'm not in favor of the re-amortization. I do think that that should be off the table, because I do believe that that would be putting more of a financial burden on the children of tomorrow. In some of it, the General Assembly has already taken effect. The COLA has been reduced. That was a General Assembly, didn't get reduced to the 12,000 matching Massachusetts. But I do think that, as Carol said, after the next election, I do think that this is something that the General Assembly will be back looking at. But I'm not going to support this at this time tonight.
I just want to say just to clarify my last statement. I mean, for people who have put 30 years in the system, as a lawyer, legally, they have a binding contract. They have relied on benefits that they've worked for. To go back and say that you can just arbitrarily or unilaterally take those away, I think you're going to have a huge legal battle. And I wanted to clarify that part. It's not as simple as a slash of the pen.
Carol. And I have to take offense that we're poisoning the well, and you're pointing out to this council. First off, let me go back that we passed a pension resolution, so don't forget that we were in agreement in a few years past on pension resolutions. So I can't remember what year that was, but we did send something up. You act like nothing has been sent up from this council. It's some of your resolutions and your wording and your anger and the trough comments and so forth that, I wouldn't sign my name to in the past, and I wouldn't sign to here. So I take offense. Our job as the Town Council of South Kingstown is to take care of the town of South Kingstown as best as we possibly can, and that we're at 91%. I think we're trying to do the best job that we can possibly do. We're at $1 million, but it comes into the investment income that's coming in, that's affecting everybody in the whole world right now. That some of the investment income isn't where it should be, and that's why every town is hurting a little bit more, including the town of South Kingstown. Those are things that we can't affect, Jim. And it's in the $1 million range. We're going to have to figure out something here in the town of South Kingstown, but I take offense that I've poisoned the well for the children of the future. Don't lay that one on my doorstep, because I'm not going to take that, and I won't take that kind of verbal abuse from anybody. I think that pension reform, and I've always stated pension reform needs to happen. The legislature has to work with those actuarials, the actuaries up there and listen to them and come up with a conclusion. But some of even the things that you point out here, your first one here, active employees must split the overall cost of pension systems with their employer. Nowhere in the private sector is this level even imaginable. You're not sure about that in the private sector, because let me tell you, it does happen in the private sector. So you can't broad brush that. I know that for a fact. And also, some of our own active employees that we've given pay more than half of what the town gives, even our EMS right off the bat. And that's something that you voted and supported. So before you say and state something on the paper, be careful about what we've done for the town of South Kingstown in the past, Jim. I could go on there, but that's just one. The devil is in the detail, Jim. Be careful what you put down on paper, because it can come back to bite you. I'm not saying that things don't have to be done in the state of Rhode Island, but when you're talking about this double dipping the pension benefits while salaried at a new job must stop, that might have to stop for the people who have taken a pension and moved on to another job. That wasn't written there that they couldn't do something like that. You might not like it, I might not like it, but it wasn't written, and you can't, as Carol says, you can't go back and pull the rug out from underneath these people for doing something that they were right in doing. They weren't breaking any laws by doing that. That's why it's such a tough thing to do up at the legislature. And I think David Caprio was here one night, extolling the two different sides that you have to look at when dealing with these people. It's a tough decision. And Polly's right. If you wanted, every year you come up with this resolution, you had ample opportunity to pull out a form and run for, I guess, against Donna Walsh for where you live, and if you wanted to go up to the state and do that. I don't know why you don't do it. I think we've suggested it every single year, but you don't want to. You want to sit here at the council table and say that we're poisoning the well when we're only trying to take care of the town of South Kingstown. So I wouldn't support this resolution. I would talk to any of my legislative people and say to them that they need to do something about pension reform, but not what you've written here.
That's what you need to do, Kathy.
I talk to them all the time.
These folks, our 4 and 5 members, need to hear this. They need to understand that this cannot continue. When we run out of money here, even newer teachers, newer state workers, they're not going to receive the benefits that have been promised.
Pension reform has changed
This is a well that is
for them.
emptying, and you won't join me on this. If this had happened 10 years ago, we'd have a lot less pain today. But what we have to do, if we're protecting South Kingstown, we need to let our 5 members of the General Assembly know that they've got to make some tough decisions. That's what they have to do. $1 million coming our way because of General Assembly decisions affecting our taxpayers. Double dipping starts new. You want to retire at 45? Then if you want your full pension, you don't take another job. That can start anew, not the folks that have already done it. And you can ladder down these. A lot of companies, including our hospital here, everybody is eliminating, going to 403Bs. This game is over. It is over. The money is running out. We are out of time. So I assume with your 4 conversations that this will not be seconded.
Could I just make a comment, Jim? And I'm not supporting or, speaking against what you just said, but the last comment that you just said, if people are going to leave at 45, don't take another job, and that would force people to stay in the job longer, and it would create more money that we would end up paying out. Sometimes it's good to get the older people out of the system so that they can recoup some dollars for the younger people coming in with attrition. So it is a double-edged sword. So it's not, there, as much as you come up with some cons, there are some pros also that go along with what you're saying.
Inel, I do respectfully
Understand what I'm
disagree
saying?
totally with that. Our problem is, for instance, we have some police and fire. Let's say you retire at age 40. Where actually the taxpayers are supporting 3 jobs. That first one, 20 to 40, retirement 40 to 60, 60 to 80, maybe the spouse has the residual. I mean, sometimes we're paying 2 and 3 times for each job. And if you add the COLAs, pull out your calculator, that doubles in 24 years at 3%, doubles in 12 at 6, which Providence and Pawtucket have. I mean, I just look at the numbers here, and this is a disaster at hand. I don't like this. I wish it wasn't the case. I wish the economy in the state were growing, but we have what we have, and we have a dwindling balance in our pension account. And just this one last whereas, and then I'll leave it alone here. State and local taxpayers, and this is right from the Treasurer's office, will pay out this year $334 million in support of pension obligations, and employees are paying in $149 million. You know, if that doesn't tell you where it's going and what we have to earn for income on our pension fund balance, it's just a recipe for a free fall here. And if you read about Providence last week, I mean, enough to make you want to vomit with, I don't know if the 75% number unfunded is the case, but that's terrible. And that will affect South Kingstown because you know the way the General Assembly works, they'll give us less money for state aid education and even less for state aid to municipalities, because the political power is up there.
I think we're all in agreement that there needs to be pension reform. Anybody want to make a motion? Nope. Hearing none, motion fails. We move on. 2. Comments from interested citizens. If anybody would like to please come forward, state your name for the record.
Bob Traeger. It's getting pretty hot in here. I'll keep it brief. Just 2 things that I heard just on that last conversation that I've heard from a lot of people that don't support the drastic pension reform that some people do. Ms. Whaley and Ms. McEntee both said, you know, there's people that have 30 years in, they're counting on a certain amount of money. I understand that. But if the money's not there, where is it coming from? So you look to the taxpayer who maybe had a 401k, lost half of his retirement or her retirement, maybe not half, maybe a third. They're going to live on less, but now you're asking them to fork over more to pay for the pensions of the union people. Now that's where the disparity is, and that's where the resentment is, and that's where the problem is. You can't ask people who have less to pay more for people that aren't making the serious sacrifice. I don't care how many years you have in it. You could have been 30 years. I mean, the pension system, the money is not there. So you're asking people to pay for it that have less as well. So why shouldn't all these state union employees, no matter what level they're at, pay some equivalent price that the private sector's paid? That's it on that. But the other thing I came up here for was, I figured, you know, you have enough on your plate, but this is something that's bothered me since 4th of July weekend. We have a water problem in this town, and as you're well aware. And even as recent as this weekend, it seemed like it got better a little bit the past couple of weeks, but I have a water pressure indicator on mine, and I'm down at the bottom of the hill at Middlebridge. When I redid my plumbing back in 2001, I had so much pressure that I had to put a pressure reducing valve in there because, I mean, it was just unbelievable. I mean, you turn on the garden hose, it would shoot 60 yards, practically. Now, it dribbles out. And, you know, it's a problem. So I realize there's going to have to be some infrastructure improvements. And I haven't heard anything said about what might be done along those lines. I mean, we're talking a bond issue, we're talking big dollars. Basically, my understanding is we have enough water, but we don't have the pipes and the pumps to get it out. Am I correct in assuming that?
No, I think the pressure problem in Middlebridge is based on the tank capabilities, or the capacity of the tank that is at near the government center, and that is United Water. United Water is responsible for being able to deliver the water to the Middlebridge system. South Kingstown does not have any infrastructure between where the pump is on Tuckertown Road and the Middlebridge water system. Everything is transmitted through the infrastructure that United has.
It's there, they own that infrastructure, but I pay my bill to South Kingstown.
That's correct, because we purchased the water from United Water.
So the question is, I realize you're saying it's their infrastructure. What can we do about it?
I think that what United is going to have to do is to determine what type of capacity changes they're going to need to make to be able to continue providing those type of water contracts, both to Narragansett and to South Kingstown. Then they'll have to go through the Public Utilities Commission to get approval for infrastructure expansions.
But this has been a problem for quite some time. This year seems worse than previous years. I mean, it's the first time we ever had to boil water. But I don't know when it started, but I've only been in Middlebridge, the Brindlebridge area for 10 years. Prior to that, I had a well in West Kingston. But almost every year, there's a water ban on outdoor watering, odd even water ban. I don't think there was ever a weekend ban before. But, I mean, it seems like it's getting worse. So we're leaving it up to United Water. There's no pressure we can put on them to do something. I mean, it's an issue for the South Shore as well.
Well, first, I never said that there's nothing we can't do to put pressure on them. I think what we have to do first is to document what the problem is, and then to have them define for us what options are available. Right now, we're under a contract with them where they need to be able to deliver that volume to us. We'll have to look at what the terms of that contract are, the length of the contract, and determine what steps we can take. But the first issue is to define the problem, and that's something I'll have to do with the utilities director.
So at this point, we don't know what the problem is, you're saying?
No, I don't. I mean, you're telling me that you've got water pressure difficulties. That's the first time hearing that. And
Well, why is there a water ban? Obviously, there's water pressure difficulties. What do you mean that's the first you've heard of that?
the water regulations that were put into effect for the summer was because we do have problems being able to maintain the volume in the tanks, whether it's for Middlebridge, whether it's for Narragansett, or whether it's for the South Shore water system. We decided 2 years ago to go with universal regulations regardless of which water system needed. So when we decided to go with the water regulations, it was for everybody's best interest. It wasn't just specifically because of Middlebridge.
Well, it's only Middlebridge and the South Shore that are typically affected by this. During that last ban, Kingston was fine.
The United Water System provides water service for all of Wakefield, all the way up to Kingston. It provides all of the water for the town of Narragansett outside of the water that Narragansett purchases from North Kingstown. South Shore is totally serviced by United Water, and so too is Middlebridge.
And they're serviced by the tank over by the playground over in East Matunic, correct?
All of the different tanks that United owns or that Narragansett or South Kingstown owns provides for the pressure in all those different locations. But as far as the pressure that's going into the Middlebridge system, that's something I'd have to research with the utilities director. I may have a lot of answers on a lot of things, but I can't answer.
Well, I mean, I thought it was fairly simple. The level of the water in the tank determines the pressure. I mean, if it's full, you have a lot of pressure. If it's low, you don't.
That's correct.
And if it's drawn down and the tank isn't filling up quickly enough, that means they can't pump it out fast enough to refill the tank.
That's
I
correct.
thought it was fairly simple, but, you know, I think that's the problem. So
The pressure the problem that you articulate, yes, that's the simple problem. The real question is, how do you resolve that problem? And that's what I'm saying to you, that I don't have an answer for you tonight.
Well, that's the reason I brought it up, because I don't think we've discussed it enough. I think we have to approach United Water and have a plan for this, because obviously I would say it's a fairly big undertaking and it's not going to be resolved within a year or two. But a plan could be put in place, because I've seen the water situation down there get progressively worse. And I'm not a heavy water user. I use under 10,000 cubic feet a year, which is not much. I don't water my grass. So, but if you go take a shower and you're used to having high pressure and someone else turns on the spigot and it's dribbling out, I consider that a problem. And I don't have any other options right now other than to say we have an infrastructure problem and we have to do something.
I hear what you're saying, Bob.
Okay. Thank you.
Comments from interested citizen? If not, Polly has something.
I wanted to ask Jeff O'Hara, Jeff, to explain one more time where we can put political signs.
They can be placed on private property. They can't be placed in the town or the state's right of way.
And how do we know the right-of-way, Jeff?
Some places it's really not that simple, and others it's blatantly obvious when you have a stone wall on both sides of the highway. Some of the roads have a 25-foot, 30-foot right of way. Lower part of Blackberry Hill's 90 feet, believe it or not. And if you go stop plucking signs 30 feet off the pavement, someone's gonna shoot you because they've been cutting the grass. But, rely on telephone poles. The telephone poles are always in the right-of-way. The sidewalk's in the right-of-way. If you're on the roadside of a sidewalk, that's pretty obvious. 4 or 5 feet behind a telephone pole is usually pretty close to the property line. And if there's anything that's in question, we'll just assume that it's far enough away.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from, no, comments? No, so we'll move on to the town manager's report.
I have nothing other than the items that were on the agenda or the manager's reports.
Okay. Holly wants you to mention the new sound equipment, Steve. Can you hear us?
Once we have an opportunity to review the tapes and see whether the sound is better, then we'll agree that it's good.
Good idea.
People can't see, but there's new speakers, and there was no screeching noises or things that have come up from this council meeting, so it's hopefully been addressed. We'll see when the tape is finished. Dale will get to see that first, or hear it first. Town solicitor's report.
Unless there are questions, nothing. And I think the sound's been very crisp this evening.
Oh, good. Money well spent.
Been a lot of it.
Much too crisp.
Oh, too. So true. Okay, next we move on to appointments.
Appointments.
And- Okay. We did have some appointments that need
Here
to
we
be.
go.
Oh, you got 'em?
We do have some appointments. We have the Affordable Housing Collaborative. I move we appoint John Taylor Ellis, Cheryl Hartnett, Jean Johnson, and John Paul Virgilio to a 3-year term that will end in August 2013.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I think that's all that came up for review for this month. Yep, okay. So that's that for appointments. We did new business item A already, and we move on to C, new business C, a resolution authorizing the tax assessor to abate taxes in the total amount of $21,111.03 as shown as on the tax abatement request number 458. Just our regular abatements that we have, some motor vehicles, nothing really. Any questions for anybody? If not, we have a motion.
I move approval of new business item D.
C.
C.
It's been moved.
Second?
There's a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And next, I need a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The meeting is adjourned at 10:25.
Did you?